In 2011, the Super Bowl champions were the Green Bay Packers. The World Series belonged to the St. Louis Cardinals. And there was something new and exciting on Blog Talk Radio. Thursday Night Tailgate launched. So celebrate with us on our 6th anniversary, along with the Gridiron Greats and the NFL Alumni Association. We'll also talk about what's good in the world of sports. It's all right here, right now, on Thursday Night Tailgate, with your hosts, Chris Mascaro and Bob Lazzari. Guys, congratulations, and take it away.
Hey, good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us on Thursday Night Tailgate. It's a big night for us because, as Joe said, we are celebrating our 6th anniversary special here tonight and our 4th annual, guest Hall of Fame inductions, which is, something that Bob and I look forward to each and every year. 6 years now, right, of doing a show that we love, bringing you interviews with some of the greatest players, coaches, media members from around the NFL and college football as well. And like I say, Chris Mascaro and Bob Lazzari here, and we couldn't be more excited about the show and to, share the celebration with all of you tonight. But what we're going to do, we're going to get the party started early by bringing in my co-host, the distinguished Mr. Bob Lazzari. Bob, happy 6th anniversary, my friend.
Oh, to you too. Happy anniversary to you, Chris, and especially, of course, to all those listeners here that have been very loyal and that give us good feedback. And, we've had so much fun, Chris, and we've got to talking to so many Hall of Famers and just great guys, period. And, if it ended tomorrow, we'd have great memories. But I'm hoping we have another 6 years in us, my friend.
As do I. So, folks, as we look here, right, we got our 2017 Guest Hall of Fame class, right? So, we can't look to this year without looking back to the 20 current members that are already in our Guest Hall of Fame. And I want to run down the list of the great guests who are already in, and that's Jim Everett, Tim Worley, Jeff Harrod, Rocky Blyer, Rusty Hilger, Lee Steinberg, Russell Baxter, Zig Fracassi, Reggie Kelly, Randy Minier, Andy Russell, John Bach, Leonard Wheeler, Ed White, LaVon Kirkland, our very first guest 6 years ago this night, Paul Alexander, Eddie Kennison, J.J. Burden, Toy Cook, and Vincey Glenn. So 20 guys already in, and we can't be, more grateful to, like as Bob said a moment ago, can't be more grateful to them, for being great guests, and really to all the guests that we have had. Well over 1,400 guests have joined us, in the 6 years that we've been doing this show, and we're thankful to each and every one of them, and many of them have come back multiple times. So our huge gratitude to all of them for being a part of the show. And tonight we are equally excited to induct 6 more guys into our Guest Hall of Fame, and those 6 people are the Dean of Atlanta Sports Talk Radio, Mr. Beau Bock. Beau has been a great friend of the show for the last several years. Former Cardinals and Dolphins Pro Bowl linebacker E.J. Jr., former Bears and Panthers Pro Bowl wide receiver Muhsin Muhammad. Always love to get to spend some time with Moose. Former Dolphins Pro Bowl linebacker Richmond Webb, who has been so very, very kind to us, as has former Jets and Dolphins defensive back Kerry Glenn. And no one has more style than Kerry Glenn does, and we'll talk about that when he joins us later on in our second hour. And then we'll round it out with former Steelers kicker Jeff Reed. So, folks, it's going to be a great night, one we look forward to each and every year. We really appreciate the fact that you are along with us to celebrate this special occasion. And we want to really start off the show by thanking our wonderful partners, and so many of them. And it starts with the NFL Alumni Association and their chairman of the board, Emeritus Randy Minier, whose name you heard a moment ago because he is in our Guest Hall of Fame, and their interim CEO, Elvis Gooden, who's going to join us mid-next month. So we can't thank the NFL Alumni Association enough for their partnership. We also want to thank Mike Ditka and Shannon Jordan and everybody at the Gridiron Greats organization for their partnership as well. They do a lot of fantastic things supporting the alumni players, folks, and they have started another organization called After the Impact, which is a fund designed to help veterans and legends as well, and that was created to facilitate comprehensive treatment and provide support for our military veterans and professional athletes and their families as well. You can find out more information about both of those wonderful organizations by going online to gridirongreats.org and aftertheimpactfund.org, so you can check them out online to see how you can get involved. We also want to thank our wonderful sponsors, Reggie and Sheila Kelly, and the folks over at Kaiven Foods. Reggie, also a member of our inaugural Guest Hall of Fame class, and we want to wish his lovely wife, Sheila, a very happy belated birthday. We thank both of them very much for their support and growing with us over the last 6 years. Our good friend Ann Jewell and the folks over at the Louisville Slugger Museum and Factory. You heard Ann join us last week. She and the museum have been wonderful supporters of ours over the last several years, and as you heard last week, Ann's enthusiasm and the great stories that she tells of certainly made her one of our favorite guests over the years. We also want to thank the great folks over at Podbean for their support making Thursday Night Tailgate and our golf show as well, Next on the Tee, featured podcast and their sports and recreation section over the last year. We can't tell you how much that has meant to us and the growth of the show as a podcast over on podbean.com. There are also a few people that Bob and I want to thank for their contributions over the years. And first of all, to my original co-host and our good friend Angelo Kane. Without Angela's collaboration, this show may have never gotten started. So, plus he's my traveling co-host. Anytime that we go out on the road to do an event, we certainly love and appreciate you, Ange. To our announcer, Joe LaGenusa, and his support with our intros and our Bob's Take spot and our ads as well. Joe's hard work and creativity have been fantastic for us over the years, Joe. We can't thank you enough, as well as our social media person for several years, Renee Shull, over at careerengagement.institute and Integrated Play. Thanks for all the tweets that you sent out and this huge support that you have been to us over the last 5 or 6 years, Renee. We really appreciate you. And Bob, I think it's appropriate to also mention your co-host on the TV side, Tony D'Angelo. He's been a wonderful support for this show as well over the years, as have the two of you on the TV side.
I appreciate that. Yeah, Tony does his own show, Chris also. He's a busy guy, does the TV show, has his own show from northeastern Connecticut. He does that also, but he does tune in when he can. And we've done the TV show for 10 years. That's kind of winding down now, but that's been a great run, and we get a lot of the guys that have come on this show, and that's what makes it all a lot of fun. So, yeah, Tony's one of them, and Chris, there's a lot of others I hear from weekly. Of course, like you said, we get many positive tweets, and we have to thank all those people. I have people listening over in England. You remember I gave a shout-out to a friend, Susan, who was listening in England a few months ago. So they're all over, Chris, and I also appear on a show every Tuesday morning here, talk show by the name of a host by the name of Lee Elsey, who's one of the best names in Connecticut, just a tremendous journalistic talent, and he allows me to talk about this show on that show and go over the guests we've had, and he gives us a lot of exposure too. So, again, numerous people, Chris, but I'm just hoping a lot of them are listening tonight, and we could give them a collective thank you right now.
Absolutely. A couple other loyal listeners, Bob, that I wanted to thank and certainly bring a spotlight to is our good friend Kyle Willoughby. You talk about folks over in England, Kyle listening to us. It's Friday morning over there, Bob. He is down in New Zealand. So it's Friday night, I guess, or Friday morning tailgate for Kyle as he listens to us on the other side of the globe. Our good friend Nancy Hansen, John Garcia, Jeff Lloyd, Tom Murphy, who's been on the show, Vince Lombardi Jr., our good friend Holly Tower, Mark Allman, who is in our guest hall or our listener hall of fame with a couple of the other folks that I just mentioned. Our good friend Dave Peters, big Chargers fan, listens in. We can't thank Dave enough. Jill Turk, Chipper Cripps, who is a good friend of both of ours on Facebook and has been so supportive of us over the years, as have two guys that really got this thing started for us, Mike Lynch and Joe Williams, who without their support and belief of the show, we would have never gotten on the air 6 years ago. So thanks to those guys. Thanks to James Brocato and Kyle Turley, two of our music contributors, and we have used their intro and outro music over the years. So thanks to those two guys. Gretchen Birnbaum and Kelly Parker Hanna for their support and belief in us, and they do a lot of social media work as well and always keep us in mind for guests. We appreciate them. Chrissy Garrett Huffman and Carol Slickmeyer and everyone at the NFL Alumni Association. Both of those ladies have been great to us in getting our show, ingrained in the NFL Alumni Association. So we certainly thank them. So, and the list could go on and on and on. We, to your point earlier, Bob, our listeners have been fantastic to us, and growing the show, and the guests have been fantastic for coming back and supporting us over and over and over again over the years. And Bob, like I say each and every week at the end of the show, one of the biggest blessings to me is to get to spend my Thursday nights with you. You're a fantastic co-host. You've been a great mentor to me over the years, and a great friend beyond all of that. So thank you very much for everything that you have brought to this show, Bob. Ann started out as the co-host, but you came in and I think it was either episode 4 or episode 6. I can't remember the first time you joined the show, coming over from the baseball side, when we were doing View from the Lone Red Sea with our good friend Dave Radigan, talking Red Sox baseball, but you came over on the football side very early on in the show as well, and you've been a mainstay ever since, so I can't thank you enough for your wonderful support.
Appreciate that, Chris. And like you said, from the whole baseball thing that started a long time ago, and it's just, it doesn't seem like a big blur, Chris. It doesn't seem like 6 years, maybe 6 months. But when you're having fun, things get archived, and I just wake up in the morning and say, what's the next show coming up? And that's how you got to look at things and have fun, right? They're all blurs, Chris.
All right, folks, it's going to be a great night, so settle in with us and let us take your mind off everything else going on in your life for the next couple of hours. Bob, before we get into our Hall of Fame inductions, let's get into our Bob's Take segment for this week.
It's time for another edition of Bob's Take. So, Bob, tell us, what's on your mind tonight?
All right, Bob, the first thing I want to get your thoughts on this week are the Giants, in particular their offense, which has been pretty offensive to Giants fans so far this season. They've scored 13 points in 2 games, the only team worse than that of the Bengals, and they've only scored 9 in their 2 games, and the Bengals ended up firing their offensive coordinator last week. So, Bob, what's your take? Where do the Giants go from here?
Pretty sad up here in the tri-state area, Chris, because this was a highly touted team. Regardless of any injuries, people are pointing to Beckham only playing 1 game so far and not being 100% there. But let's face it, Chris, there was a lot of emphasis put on a guy like Paul Perkins, the running back. He was basically given the starting job, and they truly thought this guy would be a difference maker, at least would be able to man the running back position in a way which would complement the passing game, which we know was supposed to be very powerful. Well, right now, Chris, Shane Vereen is their leading receiver, if you can fathom this. A guy like Brandon Marshall brought in here, expected to do great things, has just 2 receptions. Everything is, and the big news around here, Chris, is how the offensive line cannot protect Manning. And that blows my mind when you have a kind of a franchise quarterback who's probably in the twilight of his career but still has enough in him to win if surrounded, obviously, with the weapons, that they don't give him protection, especially on that left side. Eric Flowers is not the guy that's going to protect this guy. And if they don't get help soon, Chris, Manning, who is an Ironman in this league, is not going to last the season. That's how critical this is right now. They probably have 2 linemen on that whole line that are truly trustable. So this is not good, Chris. Again, no running game. And again, when you have a weapon like Beckham, sure, he's going to make his plays, Chris, and everything, but defenses are going to probably know that if we stop Beckham or at least slow him down a little bit, we're going to win the game because this team does not scare anybody. Again, 13 points in 2 games, that would be bad for any team. But a highly touted team like the Giants, Chris, they're not good. And finally, they're not thinking that McAdoo, his game plan has not been that good. Whether or not how he designates roles to his coaches is up in the air. So there's a lot of things happening here that aren't good, Chris, and so we'll see where this goes. But again, the running back position and the offensive line right now are huge holes, and you're just not going anywhere. A team that has goes 0-2 has a 12% of making the playoffs. So guess what? It's probably not happening.
And Bob, one more thought from you, and we'll stay right there in the NFC East. Ezekiel Elliott was held to 8 yards on 9 carries last week. They got blown out by Denver. And to add injury to insult, he didn't hustle or make any attempt, to make a tackle on 2 interceptions that Dak Prescott threw, which, certainly isn't doing his already tarnished image any good. So, Bob, what's your take on Ezekiel Elliott, and should Cowboy fans be even more worried about him going forward now?
This is a pretty sad situation, Chris, in a way. If you're going to look on the bright side, he came out today and basically kind of almost apologetically said, look, I kind of lost my head. And it's a great point, Chris. This is a guy that's not used to losing and probably doesn't know how to lose. Joe Thomas of Cleveland basically said that's his problem. He doesn't know how to lose because he's never been around it, Chris. You think of a guy that played at Ohio State and the year he had last year in Dallas. They're just not used to that. They're not used to any kind of things going wrong. So this is a guy and he's very young. As we know, the guy is still a very young man. But on the flip side, Chris, we know about his off-the-field things. He did not have to do anything on the field that would bring negative attention to him, so he did that also. I'm just hoping what he said today, maybe give him one more chance. Look, he's got to learn from what happened. That was just a brutal thing to watch because those videos, as you know, Chris, they're all over every sports website now. So he's got to spend the rest of this season trying to make up for that, and that's the type of thing that they did not need. But, of course, he's not the root of all their problems because when you give up 42 points to the opposition, you're probably not going to win anyway. So, but let's just hope, Chris, that he does learn being the young guy. He seems apologetic, but you know what, Chris? One more bad step, and this guy might be in no man's land.
Yeah, and I agree with that, Bob. I think he has got to be on very thin ice, with the Cowboys organization, with Cowboys fans, and really just with the NFL in general from what we've seen from him so far in 2017. So, yeah, I think he needs to right the ship pretty quickly. And there you go. That's that's Bob's take for this week. We've got our first guest and our first inductee into our Guest Hall of Fame of the evening, Mr. Beau Bock, hanging on the line. We'll get to Beau on the other side of this quick station ID.
This is Reggie Kelly, former Cincinnati Bengals and Atlanta Falcons tight end, and you're listening to TNT, Thursday Night Tailgate. Brace yourself for the explosion.
And now joining us on the Kaiven Foods guest line is the first member of our 2017 Guest Hall of Fame class, and it is the Dean of Atlanta Sports Talk Radio, Mr. Beau Bock. And Beau has been a tremendous friend of the show over the last few years. He's a guy that Bob and I always look forward to having back on the show just as quickly as we possibly can because we enjoy him so much. He's been the Dean of Atlanta Sports Talk Radio since 1973. No one knows more about Atlanta sports and the suffering of the Atlanta sports fan better than Beau does. His insights and knowledge are second to none in this town. We love having him as part of the show. We're excited and honored to induct him tonight into the Thursday Night Tailgate Guest Hall of Fame. Hey, Beau, Chris, and Bob, thank you for all you've done for us over the years.
Thank you. No, thank you. I'm totally flattered and honored by that. Thank you.
So,
what are you guys doing?
What's that?
I said, what are you guys doing tonight?
Well, we're enjoying our 6th anniversary special tonight. It's been a great night so far. We're just getting kicked off.
Are you engraving my name anywhere, like on a wall? Have you got chalk? Can you put it up in chalk? Anything?
In our mind.
Yeah, we do. We got your name up in chalk.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. So, Beau, I want to start off our time with you tonight by getting your thoughts on the Falcons. They got off to a little bit of a sluggish start week 1 against the Bears, but looked really good Sunday against Green Bay. Your thoughts? How are you feeling about the Falcons so far?
I feel great. I've been saying all year, we're the best team in the league. We're going to the Super Bowl. This is our year. last year wasn't our year, and what really annoys me about this jerky market of ours, because we have no sports media here, is that everybody keeps bringing up how we blew the game and how disappointed we are and all that nonsense. Hey, we were not supposed to be there. It was one of the great runs in the National Football League. We took off in week 3. Week 1 and 2 last year, we would just look like 2015 and we're just going through the motions. Week 3 against New Orleans, we were a totally different football team. It's almost like the light went on. So this year, this is our year. And then when we opened up so sluggish against Chicago, and Green Bay looked like they were midseason lubricated in their first week. They were on top and they were flying around. They looked like they were midseason. I didn't think we were going to beat Green Bay because of that. And we come out not having gelled yet and just put a number on them. We're a great football team, Chris. People don't realize this yet.
So to that end, Beau, you look at the beginning or the first half of the season, right? They got the Lions Sunday in Detroit, then they're home against the Bills, then they get an early bye week, followed by the Dolphins at home, and then they go to Foxborough with a rematch for the Patriots. Any reason to think they don't step into that game against New England undefeated?
They should be. They should be. I fully expect them to be. Where did you really get a chance to enjoy Matt Ryan in this setting with an offensive line, with the best running tandem in the National Football League, with Julio Jones, Taylor Gabriel, the receiving core that we had, and the thing that differentiates us is that Devontae Freeman. I mean, we've got a top flight running game with maybe the best aerial game in the league.
Mm-hmm. Bob, questions for Beau?
Oh, congrats, Beau. Again, it's always an honor, and I want to just stay on that whole Falcon thing because I think you're right, Beau. The offense of that team it's right up there with one of the best I've seen in a long time because when you have a quarterback
totally
like
balanced,
Ryan,
Bobby. Yeah.
That's the whole thing. I mean, you got Coleman and Freeman. You got a couple running backs. You got a bunch of wide receivers. You got a tight end that's looking good too.
Austin Hooper.
But,
looks great.
Yeah, and you put it all together, and they're getting to be like the New England of the South as far as just showing up, Beau, and they're going to score 35 points. That's the type of team they have. But I'm wondering about.
And we modeled after them, Bobby. That's where Thomas Dimitrov is from. Our one-time GM. I don't even know what his title is anymore. He's got so many assistant GMs up there and personnel guys, but. Him and Dan, subscribe to that, and Arthur from the beginning has really tried to build this club in New England's image.
And as far as Matt Ryan, Beau, if this guy, it makes me laugh because up here in the Northeast, as you know, Beau, it's all about New York and. Around the areas, you're thinking Brady and Eli Manning, and of course, branching out a little bit, you got Roethlisberger and everything. Matt Ryan might be the 7th or 8th guy you mentioned, and maybe he likes it that way. But down in Atlanta, that guy is as solid as a quarterback as you're going to get.
Yeah, and I think, Chris, you might not mention him till 7 or 8, but the beauty of him is I don't think he cares. I mean, everybody would like to be the number one quarterback in the league, or 1, 2, 3. I don't think he cares that people pass over him. He's still on a quest to prove himself and his career and this team. I mean, you got to really admire his mental toughness. And he's not a jerk. He's a locker room favorite.
And this is what I think a lot of people are comparing this team to the Seattle team that, quote-unquote, blew that Super Bowl a few years ago. Both this team, to me, they seem like they're more all on the same page. And, of course, they seem to be a little bit mentally more strong and able to handle adversity than the Seattle team. How about your thoughts on the makeup of this team mentally?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's so unusual for us, in Atlanta. we haven't had mentally tough teams. The only mentally tough teams we had was when Jerry Glanville was the defense coordinator from 77 to 82, and then when he was head coach from 91 to 93. That's the only time we had a culture, we had any type of describable mental toughness. And now all of a sudden for this team to be a smart team, to be mentally tough, to be have great camaraderie and guys playing for one another, you really have to credit Dan Quinn. Because I always say, guys, it's like everybody can X and O. Every guy that gets to be a head coach in the National Football League knows the game and how to X and O, how to draw up a play, how to stop a play. But the guys who win are the leaders. Those guys who can sell it to the team, those guys who can get the team pumped, those guys who can create camaraderie, in the locker room. And that's what Dan Quinn is. I mean, he just directs everything.
Well, I want to switch gears a little on you and talk a little baseball. Last time we had you on the show, you had some high expectation for the Braves this season. I thought, I think you thought that they were going to be a little bit better than they were last year, a little bit, certainly better than where they're at now. So your thoughts, what do you see, and what derailed the season for them?
I think what derailed the season is that we thought we'd get some more innings out of Cologne. I liked when we made that. I liked R.A. Dickey, who's pitching right now, and he's 10-11 on the year. I mean, these guys are innings eaters. But as far as the young guys coming up, I think we might have been a little premature with that because don't forget when Smoltz came up and Glavine came up, there were 2 or 3 years there when they were learning how to pitch. And it's a big difference between being effective in the minor leagues and then coming up here where everybody can hit. And so I just think that those guys took their lumps and didn't respond. We projected their success a little bit too early. That's first and foremost. Yeah. Yeah.
So are they a year away? You think 2 years away? Where do you find them?
I think 2 years away. But the other thing is, don't forget, we're not good at this. This is not the same organization that built that last successful organization that went from 91 and 14 years after that. We win 14 divisions, but only completed the deal one time. But in 1986, we were so bad, about worse than we are right now, that Stan Kasten, the general manager at the time, who now owns a piece of the Dodgers, he said he talked Ted into shutting down our competitive spirit, for lack of a better term. We were going to draw everything. We made announcements to the public. Say, look, we're not going to be competitive for a couple of 3 years. We have to rebuild the minor league system. I mean, this was a big deal that no one ever mentions or even talks about, but that was a huge deal. And we had two guys, Roy Clark, who was our director of scouting, who's back with us now after going to Washington. He's back with us now. And the other guy who's not back with us was the director of player personnel, Paul Snyder. Paul Snyder and Roy Clark are great baseball men. And you say that about a lot of guys, but a lot of guys aren't great baseball men. They just hang around. Like, for instance, Bobby Cox. Bobby Cox was a great baseball man. He was just a hail fellow, well-met, who was around the league for 100 years, I mean, it was absolutely terrible. Just absolutely terrible. What he was given the best team in baseball and the best pitching staff in the history of baseball, and he won one time. So what we're talking about now is moving forward and trying to duplicate that feat. Well, it will be rare when anybody duplicates the feat, because not only were we the best, but the division was the worst in that period. So we don't have Paul Snyder. We've got Roy Clark, but in a different role. And I don't think it can be done again like that. Don't forget, we don't have an owner. So there's nobody for Schulholtz, who's the vice CEO, and Terry McGurk, who's the CEO, knows nothing about athletics or sports or competition or anything. He's a Princeton goose. And well, I'm sorry. We're talking baseball here. And then you've got Schuerholz, who's working so many deals behind the scenes that he can't pay attention to baseball, nor does he care. Every time he's interviewed, he keeps telling everybody how he came in '91 after this deal was set, guys. After this team was set, he came in '91. He keeps saying, and we won 14 straight divisions. I mean, you talk about and ends up in the Hall of Fame because of our jerky media here. So so it's not going to happen like it did last time, if it ever happened.
Beau, before we let you go, talk about your daily newsletter and the things that you're doing now that our listeners can tune into and listen and follow you.
If you'd like to, we do a commentary every night, and it comes out via mass email, via constant contact. So if you send me your email address, I'd be happy to put you on the list. And it's probably the only media in town. Well, it is the only media in town. I was trying to not be, an idiot. But it is the only media in town that says who can play and who can't play, who can coach, who can't coach, who can general manage and who can't general manage. The only opinion in this town, believe it or not. I mean, is that incredible? This sports town of Atlanta, Georgia, when I came here in 1973, we had 4 pro franchises, including the Flames, and hockey who had it going on pretty good. We won a soccer NASL championship with the Chiefs. We had 2 major NCAA universities and conferences, and the best motorsports and tennis in the world, and golf, and nobody was saying it, and everything was in the tank, and nobody was saying anything. It was absolutely incredible to me that this was just allowed to go on and fester, and the guys at the top of these organizations were filling their pockets. It was absurd. And so, after being on the air for 42 years, I started this commentary thing, and then I'm on News Talk 1160 and Facebook video every Friday at 2:00. So, but if you'd like to, my email address is beaubock@gmail.com, BEAUBOCK@gmail.com. If you'd like to receive that, and I'd love to send it to you.
There you go. Beau, we can't thank you enough for how great you've been to Bob and I over the last several years, and what a wonderful contributor you've been to the show. Thank you, so much for your time and the things that you have added. You're fantastic.
Right. You know what? I appreciate that, Chris and Bob. But, you know what's going to happen to me tonight when I go to bed? I'm going to bed as a Hall of Famer.
That's right.
I'm going to bed as a Hall of Famer.
Nice.
That's right.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Take care, Beau. Thank you for everything.
We love you.
All the best to you and your family.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye.
That is the great Beau Bock. He is the Dean of Atlanta Sports Talk Radio. Nobody better in this town than Beau. So we always enjoy getting to spend, typically a little bit longer with Beau. Hopefully we get him back on the show again real soon. We've got the second member of our guest Hall of Fame, our 2017 class, hanging on the line, EJ Jr. We're going to get to EJ on the other side of this quick station break.
Hear your favorite NFL legends sharing their stories and insights every week right here on Thursday Night Tailgate with Chris Mascaro and Bob Lazari. Take it away, guys.
The door is locked. There's no way out.
And now making his 6th appearance with us on the Kyvan Foods guest line, like I say, is the second member of our Thursday Night Tailgate 2017 Guest Hall of Fame class, and that is EJ Jr. Let me remind you about EJ's background. Played his college ball at the University of Alabama, where he was a first-team All-American and a member of their back-to-back national championship teams in 1978 and 79. He was a first-round draft pick, the 5th overall selection by the then St. Louis Cardinals in 1981. Played linebacker in the NFL from 81 to 1993 for the Cardinals, Dolphins, Bucks, and Seahawks. He was selected to play in the Pro Bowl in back-to-back seasons in 1984 and 85, and over the course of his career, he had 36.5 sacks, 12 interceptions, 7 fumble recoveries, and he scored 1 touchdown. He is currently a candidate for induction into the College Football Hall of Fame as a member of their 2018 class. And as those of you know who follow me on Facebook, I am a privileged member, a voting member of the National Football Foundation, which selects the college football inductees and Hall of Fame inductees. And EJ is one of the guys I will vote again for this year, just like I did last year. I'm sure whenever that honor comes his way, it'll pale in comparison to being inducted into our Hall of Fame, but it's a big deal nonetheless, and we're excited he is back with us, and we are honored to induct him into our guest Hall of Fame here tonight. Hey, EJ, Chris, and Bob, congratulations, and thanks for coming back on the show.
Thank you, EJ.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. It was an honor, a pleasure, and truly a blessing, and it's good to be with you guys again.
So, EJ, we have a ways to go before the 2018 College Football Hall of Fame class gets announced on January 8th. But talk about what that means, just to be nominated for the College Football Hall of Fame. Again, I know it pales into comparison to what we're doing here tonight, but it's still a pretty big deal.
Well, anytime you get a chance to be with you guys, you learn a lot about some of the people that you've been with and some of the history that's been part of the game, and you all bring up great questions and kind of bring back the history of those days that when we played in the 70s at Alabama, and it just brings to light that it's a humbling experience. And one of the things I've learned through the Hall of Fames that I've been nominated and elected into, I didn't do it by myself. I had a lot of great players who played with me, and I was just honored to be on the field with them, and they made me look good. When you think about the Barry Krauses, the Rich Wingos, Ozzie Newsome, Tony Nathan, those guys, Byron Braggs, Warren Lyles, we had some great teams and great players, so they made me look good when I just went and did what I was supposed to do, is what you say, do your job, as Coach Bryant would say, do your job. And things were panning out to get nominated to such an honor is because I got the recognition because everybody did their job, and I just was able to be in the right place at the right time.
And EJ, you talk about the great teams that you were on at Alabama and the players that you played with, and as we look at Alabama today, they're just a football factory. You look at the great players that they've had over the last 7, 8, 9 years that since Saban has been there, and your boys are once again looking in the rearview mirror, seeing Clemson right behind them. So, we've sort of seen this movie twice now, right? Do you think that we're destined for a three-peat between Alabama and Clemson for the national championship?
It could be that tri-class, and it would be great to see it again because you really got Alabama South and Alabama East. That's why I call Clemson, because when you look at what Dabo Swinney has done at Clemson, he's an Alabama graduate. He's been an Alabama coach, and he's taken that mentality to Clemson and has done the same thing. So he's 1-1 against Nick Saban. It's a great comparison of the two teams. I love what they've done. I got a chance to see him this summer and go to the South Carolina Hall of Fame and get a chance to talk to him. And I remember him when he was a player at Alabama. They came to the Orange Bowl, and I was still playing with the Dolphins, and they were getting ready for Colorado. And I remember him being on the sidelines, and we were talking. And so he kind of reminisced about how old I am, because that was my 12th year in the NFL when they came to play, and that's when they had that Gene Stallings had brought them to Miami that year. But I'm glad to see him have the success that he has, and it looks like it will be possible three-peat, but they still got a long ways. Both teams have a long ways to go, and they have to take it 1 week at a time. Because every week somebody has that zero on your back trying to knock you off the mountain.
Bob, question for EJ?
Hey, EJ, it's always an honor, and congrats again on this great honor tonight. And every time we've spoken with you, EJ, the name of Bear Bryant always comes up, and you are well aware of his legend before you even got to Alabama. But going into the situation at Bama, EJ, I was wondering, his reputation, were you more scared and had fear of him when you got there, or was more of a respect thing once you started playing for him?
I think it's always been a respect thing. I don't think I was ever afraid of Coach Bryant. The only thing you ever was afraid of Coach Bryant was not playing well for him. There was something that I felt about Alabama at the time, and I'm not afraid to talk about it. Alabama at that time was not one of my top schools in my list. of attending because I felt that they were a racist school growing up in the days of racism where you couldn't drink from the same water fountains and George Wallace standing on the steps of Alabama saying a black man will never walk on this campus. But when you got a chance to talk to Coach Bryant and he brought up the things that he was going to do, which was he made me 2 promises, and to that day it sticks in my mind. He promised me I'd get a quality education, but then he also turned right back around and he says, if you come to Alabama, I'm going to work your tail off. So he was challenging my work ethic, and I believe in challenges, and I think it was a purpose for me to go to Alabama. But I've always respected Coach Bryant. I think he made me one of his favorites, which I didn't know until my senior year because I was one of the few seniors that's ever been on the Bama magazine by himself. I was the 6th player that ever been on the Alabama Game Day magazine, which was a high honor. I didn't even know it at the time until Sylvester Croom says, you must be special. I said, what do you mean? He says, there's only 5 other guys who've been on that program besides you by themselves. So I must have done something right to find favor from the old man. But he was a good mentor. He was a teacher. He was a philosopher. A lot of my coaching style, a lot of my mentality has come from what I learned from him. Sylvester Croom, Ken Donahue, God rest his soul, Mal Moore, Bill Oliver, Paul Crane, and then the guys I learned from the NFL, Don Shula, Gene Stallings, Tom Flores, Tom Bettis, Floyd Peters, guys who have taught me how to be a better player and take it to the next level. So I had a lot of foundations from great coaches who told me how to become a great player, and now I'm hoping I can become a very good coach.
And you had mentioned some of those great names, and I'll throw some more at you, EJ. I mean, when you got to the Cardinals in '81, you had Emmett Thomas on that staff. Larry Wilson was the director of pro personnel, Hall of Famers, both of them. And then there was a defensive player on that team who was on his way out when you got in, Roger Worley, who, when I grew up, big name. My father loved him. He seemed like he was an incredible player on a very average team back then. But how about your memories of Roger Worley?
Oh, great memories of Roger. Roger was one of those guys, what I call the old school guys, the old guard. And I learned from him, Tim Carney, Dan Deardorff, Conrad Dobler, Tim Kearney, Eric Williams, Ken Green, Ken Stone. Guys who played the game before me taught me the NFL game. And when you sit down and you talk to those guys, and Emmett was one of those guys who talked to the players, and you kind of had a relationship with a lot of the guys, and he always had that toothpick in the mouth, and you knew he was a heck of a player because he played with the Kansas City Chiefs. So I don't know, every time we would play the Chiefs in scrimmage, I don't know if he was really with us or he was kind of rooting for his old team to do well. But Emmett's been around for a long time, and you got Tom Bettis who coached Willie Lanier, and I remember one of the meetings that I had with him. He says, "You're gonna be big as a house, like Willie was." He said, "If you keep eating like that," I said, "Coach, I got a high metabolism." He said, "When you get through this game, you're gonna be about 300 pounds." Boy, did he call that one head on head. But I learned a lot of great things, especially from the old guard, because one of the things they did say, he says, the older you get, the more expendable you become in the NFL. So enjoy this game while you can, but one of the things you always do, take a young guy under your wing and teach them what we've taught you. And that's what I've always done. So I've had guys like Brian Cox, I had Freddie Joe Nunn, I had David Griggs, I had, when Zach Thomas came, I got a chance to mentor him a little bit. So I've got a chance to have some, Bob Harris who came from Auburn. So I had Nico Noga, guys who came behind me. We were a great group of guys who had a lot of fun. But I learned from those old school guys because the game wasn't changing. It was still guys teaching guys how to play and love the game.
And EJ, you mentioned Auburn. You don't know what it's like to lose to Auburn in the Iron Bowl. You beat them every year that you were at Alabama. Talk about what it was like, during Auburn week, and then what it was like when you got back on campus after having beaten them.
It was always great beating Auburn, but the one thing I will say, and I will say this till the end of my days, Auburn did not have the greatest coaching staff in the world. If they had, they would have had William Andrews, Joe Cribbs, and James Brooks running the wishbone. They had Reese McCall at tight end, and they had Byron Franklin at wide receiver. They should have been running the wishbone like Alabama. I think it would have been a different story had Auburn ran the wishbone versus Alabama with those three guys when I was a freshman, because they had the backs. But it was always a fun rivalry. I mean, you hated Auburn. It was the biggest rivalry. You learned about the Iron Bowl when you first got to Alabama, but you had other rivalries versus Tennessee. But you kind of got really worked up for Auburn because it was the bragging rights, and it was great that we never did lose to them. And you know, you can always tell the difference between if you met a state trooper who's in Alabama, because the first thing they ask you is, are you an Auburn fan or if you're an Alabama fan? And if you're on the wrong side of the Mason-Dixon line in Alabama, you're going to get a ticket. But it was always some great rivalries. It's always fun. I see a lot of the guys. I've gone back to the Alabama Hall of Fame, and guys that I used to play against were the greatest of friends. We still talk about the game. They've gotten us a couple of times. I'm still kind of tongue-in-cheek about that 106-yard field goal return against Alabama a couple of years. That kind of stings in my craw a little bit. But you know what? The rivalry is a rivalry because you got great players, great coaches, and great fans who make that game worthwhile. Everybody wants to talk about Ohio State and Michigan, because I lived in Ohio for years, and it's like, it's not like Alabama, Auburn. Y'all don't understand.
So let's take it a step. Let's take it up a notch. You win back-to-back national championships. What's it like going back to Tuscaloosa and going back on campus when you've got the national championship trophy in your hands?
Oh, it's wonderful. It should have been 3-time national champions, because everybody forgets that we got ripped off my freshman year when Ozzie Newsome and Johnny Davis and Bob Crider were seniors. We were third in the country going into the Sugar Bowl. We beat Ohio State 35-6. Oklahoma loses to Arkansas in the Orange Bowl, but they jumped Notre Dame from 5th to 1st because they beat Texas 48-6 in the Cotton Bowl. So most people would think if 1 lost and 2 lost and 3 won big, 3 should be number 1. So we actually could have been 3-time national champions, which would have been, a feat back in those days. But just to be considered the best, to be voted the best team in the country, there's no feeling like it. But the one thing that when you learn about being at Alabama is a lot of pride about being a national championship. You let it sit in your memories for about a week, and then you turn right back around and says, okay, we got a new team, we got new freshmen getting ready to come in, we got to be better than the group before, and you go right back to the grind. And that's basically what it was. I mean, you really didn't sit back and enjoy the accolades, because that was that season. It's over, and now it's time to get ready for the next one. And when you hear Nick Saban talk about the teams, when they beat Clemson 2 years ago, it was a new team that played last year, and the team that lost last year is now a different team this year. So every team is different because you lose players, you gain players, you get players that are hurt. And they all have to figure out what that chemistry is in a hurry to go perform week in and week out. Don't take any team for granted, because on any given Saturday or Friday night or whenever you play, you can lose. And we found that out twice my senior year, losing to Notre Dame 7-0 and losing to Mississippi State 6-3.
EJ, before we let you go, you're at Delaware State now, coaching their defensive line. Talk about the Delaware State Hornets and the work you and your peers are doing there trying to rebuild that program.
Well, we're in the third year of a rebuilding season. We're very excited about this season. Now, it hasn't reflected on in the win column. We're currently 0-3. We lost our first game against our rival, one of our rivals, which is University of Delaware. But we played a lot of young people the year before. The game this year was different. We lost 22-3. The game was 8-3 going into the fourth quarter. We just had a couple of mishaps in the game, and we ended up losing that game 22-3. The following week, we go to Hampton, which is one of our first conference game. We go there, and we played them pretty tough, 21-15. Going into the fourth quarter, end up losing that game 28-15. And then last week, we played the Mountaineers of West Virginia, and everybody just felt like it was going to be a cakewalk. But for the first half, West Virginia knew that they were in a dogfight. As a matter of fact, the score was going back and forth. We ended up losing the game 59-16. But our kids have so much confidence in knowing that they can play with anybody at any given time that we're going into this game against Norfolk State. We're going to let the chips fall where they may. It's the first game at home. There's going to be a lot of excitement, and we're looking to have that first victory coming back with some home cooking.
There you go. EJ, remind our listeners how they can stay up to date with all the great things that you're doing, whether it's online or over social media.
Well, I can be found on Facebook under EJ Jr., or I can be found on Twitter at EJr_E. So, I mean, just send me your tweets. I try to get back to everybody as much as possible. I'm not a big tweet, as one of my former coaches, Jamie Bryan, who they just lost to Alabama last week. He's at Colorado State. He said, I'm not a big Tweety Bird person, but I will try to respond and follow as many people as I can, because I think we're doing some great things here at Delaware State. But I also try to keep up with a lot of my friends throughout the NFL, throughout the college ranks, and seeing what they're doing.
EJ, thank you so much, for being a great member now of our Guest Hall of Fame, and for all the things that you have, shared with us over the years, your kindness, your generosity with your time. It has been a privilege for us to get to know you over the last few years, and we can't thank you enough for coming back and being a part of the show. Every time we get to spend some time with you, it's always fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chris and Bob. And I'm very humbled, very honored, and very blessed to know you guys. And you all do a wonderful job. And make sure you tell Richmond Webb that I still know the trick of how to beat him in pass rush, because I taught Jason Taylor. And I just saw Jason Taylor going to the NFL Hall of Fame. I said, I'm still a great teacher. I still know some things about playing football. So tell him and Kerry Glenn I said hello. Gentlemen, you all have a blessed evening. And again, thank you so much for this honor.
Our pleasure. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, EJ. Take care. All the best to you and your family. We'll catch up soon.
All right. Blessings.
Good night.
That is EJ Jr., Bob, and so he's done so much for us over the last few years and taught us so much, not just about football but off the field as well. And some of the things that he dealt with, and the things that he is now teaching to young people. But what a wonderful coach! The guys at Delaware State are truly blessed to have a guy teaching them like EJ Jr.
Yeah, he's always been accommodating to us. Chris has come on the TV side also, sharing all kinds of great stuff. And, if I had a kid, I would want EJ coaching him. Great player. We forget that he spent 13 years in the NFL and was one of the better linebackers of his era. So tremendous guy, and I know he's going to do great things in Delaware.
Yes, he is. All right, before we get to our third member of our 2017 Guest Hall of Fame class, Muhsin Muhammad, I want to give a shout-out to former Giants and Browns fullback and a member of our 2015 Hall of Fame class, Randy Minier, and his great staff up at the Salt Creek Golf Retreat in Nashville, Indiana. Let's hear a word from our announcer, Joe Lajanusa, about the great things that they have going on up there.
If you're looking for a great place for your annual golf outing, a weekend golf getaway, or just a round of golf with your buddies, then Salt Creek Golf Retreat is just what you're looking for. Centrally located in Nashville, Indiana, just south of Indianapolis and west of Cincinnati. This challenging but fair 18-hole golf course appeals to all skill levels, and its scenic views of rolling hills and tree-lined fairways are sure to make golfing memories for years to come. Owned and operated by former Purdue and New York Giants fullback Randy Minier, Salt Creek Golf Retreat offers stay-and-play packages that include golf and a fully furnished 1- or 2-bedroom condo. After your rounds, be sure to stop by the 19th Hole Sports Bar and Restaurant for great food, fun, and drinks. Randy and his staff will treat you like family. For more information, log on to saltcreekgolf.com. That's saltcreekgolf.com. Or give them a call at 812-558-5944. Salt Creek Golf Retreat. Start making your golfing memories today.
You're listening to Thursday Night Tailgate with Chris Mascaro and Bob Lazari, where NFL legends live on. Back to you, boys.
It's him. He's alive.
And now back in making his 7th visit with us on the Kyvan Foods guest line is the 3rd member of our 2017 Guest Hall of Fame class, Muhsin Muhammad. Moose has been a treasure for us over the last several years. He first joined us back in January of 2013. He's been a part of the family now for 4.5 years, and that shows you how fortunate we are. Let me remind you about Moose's background. He is from Lansing, Michigan, played his college ball at Michigan State, where in his senior season he was 5th in the Big Ten in both receptions and receiving yards. He was a second-round draft pick by the Carolina Panthers in 1996, and he played in the league from 96 to 2009 with the Panthers and the Bears. Was selected to the Pro Bowl twice in 1999 and again in 2004. Led the league in receptions in 2000 with 102 and in receiving yards in 2004 with just over 1,400 yards. Over the course of his career, he amassed 860 receptions for 11,438 yards, and he scored 62 touchdowns. He was a part of the Panthers' 2003 NFC Championship team that very nearly knocked off the Patriots in Super Bowl 38. Went back to the Super Bowl 3 years later with the Bears in Super Bowl 41 against the Colts. In 2014, he was inducted into the Gridiron Greats Hall of Fame, and it is with a great deal of pleasure and honor that we induct him tonight into our Thursday Night Tailgate Guest Hall of Fame. Hey, Moose, Chris, and Bob, thanks for being so fantastic and for coming back on the show tonight.
Hey, guys, thank you for having me on. It's a honor and a pleasure, and I can't believe it's been 7 years. I know we've had a lot of great conversations over the time. So, Moose, I want to start our time with you tonight by getting your perspective on your former team, the Carolina Panthers. They had a down year last year. They're off to a 2-0 start, though, so far this year. They got the Saints and the Patriots coming up over the next couple of weeks, so their defense is about to get tested pretty hard. How do you feel about your boys so far this season? You know, I think they are definitely rebounding from a down year where, in my opinion, I thought they lost a lot on defense, which has always been the staple for the Carolina Panthers. You know, when you lose a guy like Josh Norman, when you lose the leadership of a Charles Tillman, Peanut Tillman, and a Roman Harper, and other key components throughout the season that you lose. Number one, Luke Kuechly gets injured in the first few games, and those are hard to replace. And you go out there, you got a guy Worley and Bradbury, and two talented young corners, but it was their first year last year. And so, huge learning curve for those guys. And when you look at how many games that Panthers lost by 3 points or less, and it started with the kickoff game versus Denver last year, losing that game by a failed field goal, it just tells you that the margin of victory is very slight, and they make a difference. And so I think the Carolina Panthers rebound this year. Obviously, they're off to a pretty good start. Worley, Bradbury, both corners that now have a year under their belt and are playing extremely well. They bring in Captain Munnerlyn. They bring in a veteran safety, and then Kurt Coleman is playing extremely well back there in the secondary. And of course, two linebackers that I would argue are the best two linebacker or the best linebacker tandem with Luke Kuechly and Thomas Davis. And let's not forget, you've got Julius Peppers back, who's got a couple of sacks already, and he's playing with K'Wan Short and Mario Addison, who led the team with 9.5 sacks last year. I think the defense, is the staple of this team, and over the first 2 weeks, I think they broke a record. I think it was in the 80s or sometime like that, a defense held the first two teams that they played to a total of 6 points, 3 points in each game. So, they're breaking records already this year. I think they'll have a phenomenal year on defense. On offense, I'm a little concerned, to be honest with you. I think Cam has shown some inconsistencies, and that's primarily because of the shoulder injury that he had in the offseason. He is working out the kinks, and instead of doing that through preseason football, he's got to do that through the season now. And so you've got Christian McCaffrey. I played in the days with his dad, Ed, and he's a fiery spark plug kind of guy. He's
sort of utility, do it all, not one position. He's, kind of a, it's kind of an X factor kind of player. I don't know if I would put him in any one position, but Kelvin Benjamin is back in the lineup. They lose a Teddy Ginn who could stretch the field, and I think that's one thing that they're missing is that guy that can stretch the field. But Kelvin Benjamin will be a threat. He'll be the big body and kind of reminds me of sort of how I used to play and boxing guys out, using your body to catch the football. Devin Funches is another guy that can do the same thing. They just lost Greg Olsen to a broken foot. He was a leading receiver last year, so it'll be tough to replace a guy like Greg Olsen. But I think these guys will find a way. We may sputter along, but I think through the first quarter of the season until the offense really finds their identity and Mike Shula really finds, his go-to players, his go-to plays. But when you got Jonathan Stewart in the backfield and he's running as well as he has in the first two games, I think you can ease a little bit of pressure off of Cam and throwing the football. So, my prediction, and I think the NFC South is going to be a tough division to win. I mean, Jameis Winston down in Tampa Bay is, obviously doing a stellar job and off to a quick start. Matty Ryan in Atlanta. Devontae Freeman's running the ball extremely well. Their defense looks fast and quick. They squeaked by that first game against Chicago, but, I think they, after that, pretty sound victory in their second game. But I think that there'll be at least 3 teams in this division that has, 10 wins or better. And, somebody's going to miss the playoffs. So hopefully it's not the Panthers, but I think this division will be one of the better divisions in the conference.
Bob, questions for Moose?
Congrats, Moose. It's always an honor to speak with you, and I hope everything's been going well with you. I'm going to take you back to your college days. When I see a guy that attended Michigan State, Moose, I always say to myself, Michigan missed out on him, and vice versa. If a guy goes to Michigan, you say, Michigan State was probably heavily recruiting him too. Did you have your choice of the schools, Moose, and maybe some of the other schools that were after your services?
Yeah, actually I did. I took a visit to University of Michigan and also Michigan State. I took a visit to University of Miami, and Miami recruited me primarily as a linebacker. That's back in the old, Jesse Armstead and Mike Barrows days, and I think it was Dennis Erickson was the head coach back then, and Miami had they recruited guys like me that were fast and tenacious on the defense. And you guys know I played linebacker in high school, so my father had a little to do with my decision. He was a legacy. I'm a legacy. He played at Michigan State back in the days with Bubba Smith and all those guys that played on that 66 championship team that had to tie with Notre Dame. So he had somewhat of an influence on my decision, even though he says that he wanted me to make that decision myself or where I wanted to go to school. My father and my mother went to Michigan State. They were both Spartans. And like I said, my dad played football. He also advised me to switch my position and play wide receiver. He said, son, the league at NFL is going to these big prototype wide receivers, and I think you'd be a good wide receiver. And at the time, playing running back and linebacker in high school, I just scratched my head and said, Dad, what the heck are you talking about? But years later, it was probably some of the best advice he ever gave me.
In that first year in the NFL, Moose, it was a very good Panthers team, and obviously going to the championship game your rookie year, and just looking over some of the people on that roster, very impressive. Just wondering, out of everyone on that roster, who are some of the guys that made your transition to the NFL easier and basically showed you the ropes more than anyone else?
Well, I'll tell you what, and it's funny you asked that. My first, meeting in training camp, I was a holdout, contract holdout, And, here I am flying in from, Lansing, Michigan to Charlotte, North Carolina, and then, jumping into a car and driving down to Spartanburg, South Carolina, and signed my contract and ran straight out to the practice field. And I about died the first practice because I hadn't felt that type of heat and that intensity. So I was full of IVs, but my first meeting, I sat next to a guy named Dwight Stone, and Dwight Stone was an old, Pittsburgh running back, special teams guy, but for Carolina, he was a backup wide receiver and played on all special teams in Carolina. I grabbed a chair and I sat next to Dwight. And, I was looking over, and as the coach was going through our installation, Dwight had all these markers, bunch of different colors, highlighters, markers, pens, you name it. And I didn't know if he was just doing all that to keep himself awake in the meetings because, you'd be pretty tired at the end of the day, but I paid attention to what he was doing, and he was highlighting every position with a different highlighter, and he was taking notes, and that's where I learned how to take notes, and how I learned how to study was sitting next to Dwight Stone in the meeting rooms, and I eventually grew to learn all the positions on the team, and I was interchangeable, and I could do different things, and it made me more valuable as a player, but I learned how to take notes from Dwight Stone. My locker in the locker room was next to Eric Davis. And, Eric Davis was a cornerback that came from San Francisco. He had played against Jerry Rice, practiced against Jerry Rice in San Francisco, and, won a championship with San Francisco. And he would always tell me, Moose, you don't have to catch every ball. You just got to catch the ones that come to you, and you go to the Pro Bowl every year. And it was very profound, and I kind of scratched my head like, what the hell is this old guy talking about? But he was right. I mean, if you caught the balls that were thrown to you, you could have a really, really good career. I don't know about Pro Bowl every year because it's really a popularity contest, but he definitely made an impact because he would throw these little jewels in my ear every single day. And he was a huge influence. Another guy, Sam Mills, and Sam, the late, great Sam Mills that passed away from cancer, Sam would he would say I was a moose that ran like a deer, and he said that's what he used to always call me, man, you're the moose that runs like a deer. And he would always, sort of, get in my ear and tell me things. Lamar Lathan was outside linebacker, and he was a huge influence. Robert Griffin that won multiple championships with the Denver Broncos, the fullback, is Robert is still a good friend of mine. He works for the Big Ten Network as a broadcaster, but he was really a big influence on me, even though I only played with him for 1 year. And I'll mention maybe a couple other guys that I would contribute in my early years. I would say Mark Carrier. I just watched the way Mark worked. Mark went to one Pro Bowl. He was an alternate, went to a Pro Bowl, played most of his year with Tampa Bay. But Mark was just a hard-working, bring your lunchbox every single day, and really taught me how to practice and how to be a pro. Like, just rolling up your sleeves and coming to work every day. Don't ask to get pat on the back. Just come in and work and let everything else, all the chips fall where they may. And I did just that, My first day out of practice, Mark was catching balls from our wide receiver coach, Richard Williamson. And they would catch 10, 15, 20 balls before every single practice. And as soon as, I would take a knee. Well, the first day I took a knee, and I sat there and I watched Mark catch those balls just, and Coach warmed him up. Rich warmed him up before practice. And then Rich said, what the heck you doing? Get over here. So I got up and I went over there, and Rich started throwing me balls. And so every single day of my career, and I can say this with conviction, and anyone who played with me or, practiced with me, they know this, that I caught at least 20 to 30 balls or more, probably 50 balls before every practice and after every single practice throughout my whole career. And that was my position coach, Richard Williamson. I did that every single year, and I had good hands. And so, between Rich and between Rich and, oh goodness, it slipped my mind. I actually, so they really taught me the practice and the hard work and the practice. The other person I would say that was influential with me, guys, is Reggie White. And only played 1 year with Reggie White. But Reggie, in my third year, it was 98 when Reggie came on. Reggie really taught me how to be a leader. I played for myself, I'd say, the first couple of years on the team, and really trying to find my identity. But when Reggie came on, and I played with Reggie for that 1 year, Reggie really taught me how to lead, and how to be vocal and how to be a leader and how to assume leadership and bring guys with me. Don't just be a good player yourself. Make the people around you better. And so, I started learning how to mentor and how to teach through Reggie White. But I would say those guys are probably the most impactful and influential on my young career.
Moose, before we let you go, let our listeners know, how can they stay up to date with, all the things that you're doing now and follow you, whether it's online or it's over social media?
Well, I'm on Twitter at Moose Muhammad 87, and that's probably, one way to stay up with me. I am on Facebook as Muhsin Muhammad. Muhsin, I think there's _ Muhammad. And, I'm not really a huge social media guy. I would say that most of the information and things that we put out, my wife does. She kind of runs like the family Facebook, and her name is Krista, Christa Muhammad. And she does a lot of our sort of family posts, events, activities, and anything that we're all into. I've got quite the tribe that we corral and try to lead, but that's probably the best way to keep up with me and see what I'm up to.
Well, Moose, we can't thank you enough for being a great guest with us over the years and for all that you've done for us and the great insights and stories that you've shared and your willingness to come back over and over again and be a part of the show. So thank you very much for all of that. Thanks for being a great member of our Guest Hall of Fame, and we certainly look forward to catching up with you again, hopefully real soon.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot. Like I said, it's an honor and a pleasure to be a part of the show and to be inducted. And I look forward to the next conversation.
All right,
you, sir.
Take care. All the best to you and your family.
Okay, guys. Take care.
Good night.
That is former Pro Bowl wide receiver Muhsin Muhammad. We've got our next guest, Richmond Webb, hanging on the line. We'll get to Richmond right on the other side of this quick station break.
This is Reggie Kelly, former Cincinnati Bengals and Atlanta Falcons tight end, and the owner of Kyvan Foods, and you're listening to Thursday Night Tailgate with my boys Chris Mascaro and Bob Lazari on the Armed Forces Radio Network.
And now back in making his 8th appearance with us on the Kyvan Foods guest line and the 4th member of our 2017 Thursday Night Tailgate Guest Hall of Fame class is former Dolphins Pro Bowl linebacker Richmond Webb. Let me remind you about Richmond's background. He is from Dallas, Texas, played his college ball at Texas A&M, where he was named All-Southwestern Conference in 1989. He was also a team captain that season and the winner of the Aggie Hart Award. He was a part of 2 Southwestern Conference championship teams in 1986 and 87. He was a first-round draft pick, the 9th overall selection by the Miami Dolphins in 1990. He played left tackle in the NFL from 1990 to 2002 for the Dolphins and the Bengals. Set a Miami Dolphins record with 118 consecutive starts
As an offensive lineman, folks, to give you some frame of reference, that means he didn't miss a start for 7 1/3 seasons. He was selected to 7 consecutive Pro Bowls from 1990 to 96, was named AFC Rookie of the Year in 1990, and he was also named to the NFL's All-Decade Team for the 1990s. He was inducted into the Dolphins Hall of Honor back in 2006. And what is keeping him out of the Pro Football Hall of Fame remains a mystery to Bob and I. And, you look back, and Richmond first joined us in October of 2013. So he has also been a member of the TNT family for almost 4 years now. And we are very grateful and honored to have him now as a member of our 2017 Guest Hall of Fame class. Hey, Richmond, Chris, and Bob here. Thanks so much for being such an outstanding guest with us over the years.
Gentlemen, how y'all doing today?
Oh, fantastic, Richmond. So, Richmond, I want to start our time with you tonight. I want to take you all the way back to your second game in the league, almost 17 years ago to the day, as a matter of fact, September 16th, 1990. Home game against the Bills. Bruce Smith lines up on the other side of the line of scrimmage from you. The Bills would go on that year to finish 13-3 and go to the Super Bowl. Bruce Smith would have 19 sacks that season, but he and the Bills got none that day, and you guys won the game 30-17. So as a rookie, playing in your second game, what was it like taking on Bruce Smith and doing it so successfully?
Well, I have to admit I did have some help. That game, by the time I came into the NFL, Bruce was already established as one of the top 2 defensive ends, I believe. Well, I know it was him and Reggie White, and the good thing was it was only one that was on my side. At least Reggie was on the other side. But I think that helped. I had help, and also, if I remember correctly, that was like a 1 o'clock game, and it was hot and humid. And then by the third and fourth quarters, I think that heat finally jumped on them, and it definitely helped. But I have a lot of respect for that guy, but I was happy he didn't have a huge game, and it was always great to beat the Bills because they were one of our, arch rivals in the AFC East.
When I look back over the stats, Richmond, and, you and Bruce Smith, you guys obviously, in the same division. You played each other twice a year. Throughout the decade of the 90s, you guys were going against each other. And over that time, he only got 3.5 sacks against you. Have you guys ever talked about the battles, and did he ever get excited when he finally got one on you?
I'm sure he did. We never really talked about it, but I just think it was just a normal rivalry between both teams. The Bills didn't like us. I think everybody in the AFC East didn't like each other, and they look forward to beating the Dolphins, but that was our nemesis. I mean, I remember one, maybe twice. If you wanted to get to the Super Bowl, you had to go through Buffalo, and I remember we lost, I think, my rookie year up in Buffalo in a playoff game, and they went on to lose. They played the Giants in the Super Bowl and lost. And then I think it was my third year, we had the AFC championship game in Miami, and we played Buffalo, and they beat us at home to advance. And I think that was the first time they played the Cowboys. Might have been the second time in that Super Bowl. So it's just a rivalry that, even with the Jets, the Patriots, everybody that was in that division, nobody really liked each other. So it wasn't hard to get motivated for those games.
Bob, questions for Richmond?
Congrats again, Richmond, and it's always a pleasure to speak with you. And I want to ask you, Richmond, about Texas A&M. To me, that's a fascinating school because we think about it up this way. We think of a place with almost a type of a military atmosphere, very good academically. How tough was it for you as far as making the transition to college, Richmond, as far as balancing time and athletics? I'm sure you learned a lot down there.
Yeah, and like you said, great school, probably best school in the country. And, the thing about A&M that I remember academically, it is tough no matter what your major was. And I guess we kind of had a saying before, most people never said they graduated from A&M. They said we got out. So it was happy if you got out with a degree, you felt it was good. But academic challenge, but big on tradition, big on network, and Aggies keep up with each other, and Aggies support each other. So I couldn't have chosen a better university to attend and play football. So I'm an Aggie for life.
And then you find yourself in the NFL playing under a legend, Don Shula, for 5 or 6 years, Richmond. I mean, I'm sure you've been talked about him so many times before, but if you had to narrow it down to his strengths and what makes him the great Hall of Famer that he is, what did you like most about him?
I think his strength was he was consistent, and he was big on discipline. He was big on not making mental errors to beat yourself, and that was formed. And I guess once he got the core group to buy into it, everybody else followed around. So he was just huge, and he always seemed like he could find a way to win games and stuff like that. And he was a legend even before I got there. And I think, talking to some of the guys that played for him back in the 70s, they said he wasn't as tough as when I was there. He was going 3-a-days and stuff like that. But he was just, very smart coach and knew how to get the best out of his players. I think that's what made him a Hall of Fame coach.
Richmond, one more before we let you go. And a little earlier on in the show, we had E.J. Jr. on, and he said, pass along to Richmond Webb that I still know how to beat him in pass rush. What does he mean by that?
That's a funny story. I love E.J. Jr. He was one of the guys having to practice against a guy like that. E.J., he was a great pass rusher, and I think E.J. went to 3 or 4 Pro Bowls. He played for the St. Louis Cardinals, and he played for the Miami Dolphins. But doing one-on-ones, that was the guy that I had to, go one-on-one with. And even though he's a linebacker, he's a lot quicker than some defensive linemen. So, he would just make me work and practice day in, day out. But that was the preparation I needed to be ready on Sundays. So he said back then, he made a deal. He said, after you go to like 3 or 4 Pro Bowls, I'll take it easy on you. Well, after I went to 3 or 4 Pro Bowls, he still was coming full speed. I'm like, hey, what's up? But, that's just EJ. He's like, he was determined, and, he went to, University of Alabama, played for Bear Bryant. So, and then, going to play for a coach like Coach Shula. So that was just work ethic. Playing for those type of coaches, you got to come to work and stuff like that. But it makes the games actually easier. So, you tell Mr. E.J. Jr. I said hello. I hadn't talked to him in a while, but we follow each other on Twitter and stuff like that. So I know he's doing good.
Well, Richmond, thank you so much for continuing to be a part of the show. Thank you for being a wonderful member of our Guest Hall of Fame now, and most of all for coming back and continuing to share your stories and your insights with us. We can't thank you enough. You've been a fantastic member of our show and our TNT family, and thank you for your time again tonight. And we hope you'll come back and join us again real soon.
Hey, thank you for the award, and I appreciate you guys considering me family, and we always have a great time, and I always look forward to doing your show. So thank you again, and I look forward to doing this again soon, and we'll have a blast next time.
Indeed we will. Thank you, Richmond. All the best to you and your family. We'll catch up soon.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That is former Dolphins Pro Bowl left tackle Richmond Webb, and great story with E.J. Jr. You got to wonder what the battles between those two guys was like at practice, Bob.
Oh, yeah, and as we said at the outset, Chris, for a guy that went to 7 Pro Bowls and 12, 13-year career and never missed a game, basically I don't know why he's not in the Hall of Fame. Played around a lot of great guys, and that's usually the case, but you and I will always be on that bandwagon.
Yes, we will. I cannot believe that guy is not in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It makes no sense to me whatsoever. Okay, now back with us on the Kaiven Foods guest line and making his 9th appearance with us and our 5th member of our 2017 Guest Hall of Fame class is Kerry Glenn, and what an outstanding guest Kerry has been with us over the years. He first joined us back in April of 2013, and he's been a part of the TNT family for nearly 4.5 years now as well. And we love him because, he always has a big smile on his face, and you can hear it in his voice when he talks to us, and always, shares great stories and insights. And nobody has better style than Kerry Glenn does. And if you're not following on Facebook, you should be. Go check it out. The man knows how to dress, and he's, like I said, he's been a wonderful guest with us. Let me give you a little bit of background on Kerry. He's from East St. Louis, Illinois. Played his college ball at the University of Minnesota. He was a 10th-round draft pick by the New York Jets in 1985, and he played defensive back in the NFL from 85 to 92 for the Jets and the Dolphins. He was selected for the 1990 Pro Bowl for his special teams play and leading the Dolphins in special teams tackles. Over the course of his career, he had 7 interceptions, 2 of which he returned for touchdowns and 2 sacks, and we are honored to have him as a part of our 2017 Thursday Night Tailgate Guest Hall of Fame class. Hey, Kerry, Chris, and Bob, thanks for being so great to us over the years and for joining us again tonight.
Chris and Bob, yes. See, I was listening to Richmond Webb, okay. See, Richmond Webb, he's not going to say this, but I'm going to say this. So next time you talk to him, ask him about it. He didn't mention anything about when I was rushing, they had me blitzing, and he was the tackle over there. He didn't tell you anything about that. Let me tell you guys a little bit about that. Richmond came in. When he came in, I didn't speak to rookies. I mean,
is that right?
I did not speak to rookies. You make the team. You show me that you're doing something. I talked to. I mean, he used to come and he would say something to me, and I just like act like he wasn't talking to me. So,
he's a big man.
I know he is. I know he's a big boy. And so they used to blitz me. We go through the weekly practice, and then I would, then work on a blitzing and all that stuff. And I was blitzing from like the nickel position. I was blitzing. I go up. I say, and I blitz, and Richmond, you look at me. I'm 5'10", and you look at Richmond. He's like 6'5", 6'6", 300 some pounds. And I'm like, just let me get through it every once in a while. Let me get through it every once in a while. Because he was, he kept. But I'm gonna tell you something about him. Richmond he's a humble guy. Don't let him tell him about it himself. Richmond is, I'll tell you right now, he's one of the best tackles in the game. And I kid you not. On a serious note, I seen him play when he came in as a rookie, and I was like, damn, this is a bad boy. He's good. And then when you look at Bruce Smith. Bruce Smith could not dominate him. And that was the key to it. I know Richmond said, he had a little help. Let me tell you something right now. A lot of times Richmond didn't have help. A lot of times Richmond was handling Bruce by himself. And I'm telling you something, he did a heck of a job. So I just want to let you know. And like you said, he deserved to be in the Hall of Fame. He absolutely positively deserved to be in the Hall of Fame. Yeah.
Yeah, we've been ringing that bell for a few years now. It's a mystery to us. Kerry, I want to get your thoughts on how the game is officiated now. It seems like wide receivers can do pretty much whatever they want, including push off a lot of times. And meanwhile, the defensive backs, you can't touch anybody. They got to be looking back at the quarterback if they want to make a play on the receiver, or if not, it's pass interference. And don't hit anyone hard, by the way, because even if you hit a guy hard without hitting him to the head, if you hit him hard in the ribs, it seems like that's a penalty now too. So it just feels like to me, Kerry, that defensive back might be the toughest position to play in all of sports now. Does it seem that way to you?
Yeah, one thing about it, I just think some of the guys are just not. They got to stick with their fundamentals. When I look at the game, and I look at the game because this is football, and let me explain to you how it goes. You get drafted. You get drafted out of college. Okay, you go to the pros. When you go to the pros, the game is fast. Okay. The game is fast. Okay, now when you become that person that understands the defense and understand the offense of the teams, the game becomes slow. I don't know if you understand. Do you understand what I mean? Then the games become
well. I mean, I get it on some level, but what does that mean? I mean, once you become familiar with all the different plays, now you know where everyone's at, so it slows down for you. What are you trying to? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. The game slows down, and you know exactly where they're going to throw the ball. Because what I used to do, I knew what everybody was doing. I knew what gap the tackle was going in. I knew what gap the center was going in. I mean the nose guard. I knew what tackle the defense end. I knew what gap he was going in. I was always involved. I always wanted to get involved with that. And that was from Bud Carson Tulish to me. Bud Carson, he brought me in his office, and that's the reason why I made the league, because Bud told me, hey, this is what you got to do to be in the league. He said, you need to know what those linebackers are doing. You need to know if they're buzzing out to the flat. And that's what a lot of these guys, they just not just some of the stuff is just basic fundamentals of the game, and they're not really doing it. Now when it comes to like the defensive back play, I think that the calls that they're making is terrible. Because my deal is, I wonder whether or not the guys who was just penalizing these guys, they don't understand whether or not the ball is blown up or stuck. Because the reason why is because it take a fraction of a second for everything to happen. I broke my leg in the game, and guess how I broke my leg? I hit Mel Gray. We was playing Detroit. I hit Mel Gray. I planted my leg, and just that very second, J.B. Brown hit him and spun him around. When he hit him and spun him around, I broke my leg. It's just a fraction of a second of everything. And so when they send back trying to say, oh well, when you making a hit, you could have dropped your head a little bit lower. And I seen one of the preseason games where one of the guys, the offensive guy, dropped his head, and they penalized the defensive player for that. And I'm like, come on, he dropped his head. How far do you want the defensive back to drop his head?
Right.
That's the part I don't understand. I mean, it's just like I said, the whole game. If you look at when you see this happen on some of the games, you just look at it. Everything is a fraction of a second, and you cannot tell that player, or either make a player, change his head direction in a fraction of a second. That's totally impossible to happen.
Right. Bob, questions for Kerry?
Kerry, we talked in the past about Bud Carson a lot and went over the greatness of him, and I just loved watching his defenses. And back then, those mid-'80 teams, like especially like 85, that was the sack exchange. And when you'd pick up the New York Post, and that's what you would read about, the sack exchange. I was wondering if the DBs on that team took a little exception to that, because you had some very, very talented defensive backs like Johnny Lynn, yourself, and Kirk Springs. These guys could play, but what was it like playing with the sack exchange?
It was great because it depends. We had to we always had to really keep Mark in check, of course.
Yeah.
We always had to keep Mark in check, but it was great. I mean, there's a few times where I got in Klecko's face about a couple of things, and Bud was like, and this is like in the middle of the game. I mean, we was playing Cleveland, and Kevin Mack comes through the line untouched. I go up and I make the tackle. Then I go back to the huddle, and I'm like, dog, I'm saying, hey, I don't give a what you guys are doing, but I tell you what, you better put a hand on him. I say, he's coming through the line, and I'm hitting him, and then they're like, Kerry. And I'm talking to that Kerry. And I'm like, what? You need to go to the sideline. I say, why do I need to go to the sideline? Look down, you're bleeding. I cracked my head open from hitting Kevin Mack. And so I went over, and I got some, they did the butterfly thing, and I went back in the game, and when I'm on the sideline, Bud asked me, he said, come here, what were you saying? Why were you yelling at Klecko? I say, I'm yelling at him because you see this right here? See those butterflies I have in my head? I say, that's because of him. See, he needs to put a hand on Kevin Mack. And then Bud looked at me, like, okay. He said, get back in the game. but yeah, I mean, see, that was a thing right there. I mean, it's like those guys. I mean, Joe Klecko was a bad boy. I mean, and it is, I mean, there's nothing, like I said, he should be in the Hall of Fame. I mean, because I've seen Joe, like I said, I've seen Joe Klecko do something in the game. I've seen him take a man that was 280 or 290 pounds and lift him off the ground. I've seen him do that. This is in the game, and you see the play, you wouldn't even recognize that it happened. Bud Carson ran the film, and then he said, "You guys see that?" And everybody in the room was like, "What the hell are you talking about?" And then he ran the play back. He said, "Look at the center and look at Joe Klecko." The only thing we saw is Joe Klecko push the center in the backfield. We didn't really. That's the only thing we knew. But when he ran it back and ran it in slow motion, Joe Klecko picked this guy up. He had the guy off the ground, and the guy's feet was dangling in the air.
Wow.
and yeah, I mean, Joe Klecko was a bad boy. I mean, he used to wear gloves. He wore like the triple X gloves. He used to cut those in half, and he had to tape them on his hands because he had huge hands. And he used to always come up, and I used to hate it. And he used to always come up to me and say, "Oh, you're doing rookie," and he'll slap me right on the damn chest. Like, dude, come on, man. Quit him with them big old black claws. But yeah, I mean, that right there in itself was just, it was great playing, with those guys, and then, Mark, it was always, when I got drafted, I was like, man, I got some guys that can rush the passer, So me as a defensive back, I was just thinking to myself, I have to learn everything, and I gotta stay in that film room, learn this stuff because these guys can rush the passer, and that'll be a good thing for me.
Yeah, and for you personally, Kerry, going up against guys like Al Toon and Wesley Walker in practice, those were two of the better receivers in the league. They were on your own team. May sound silly, but they had to make you a better player. Mickey Schuler, too, can catch passes. Those must have been great practices.
Oh yeah. Well, what I did, I was working with Al Toon. I liked because I played against him in college. And me and Al, we played against each other in college and stuff, and he knew how I was. Al knew how I was, because they called a pass interference on me, and I picked off a ball in the end zone. They called a pass interference on me after Al Toon, after he pushed me. I'm like, really? And Al started laughing. He said, "You did get a pick, didn't you?" I said, "Yeah, I did." He said, "That's all right, but we got the ball." But yeah, I mean, it's that's what I did. I went to Wesleyan. I said, "Listen, I want to go against you guys." I said because I want to go against a rookie, and I want to go against the best. I said, because you know what, though? Only thing that's going to make me better is going against you guys and covering you guys. And then Bud, and Bud had a special interest in me. So what he would do, he would just like, hey, come in there and, look at film. I want you to look at Lester Hayes, and look, I want you to do the things that Lester Hayes is doing. And everybody know Lester Hayes back in the day. He was a bad boy. Yeah, he was.
So, Kerry, before we let you go, let our listeners know how can they follow you, stay up to date with all the things that you're doing, and whether it's online or it's over social media.
Oh yes, you could on Twitter, and if you'll see my name, Kerry Glenn. Kerry Glenn, 35 on Twitter, and then on Facebook, just my name, Kerry Glenn. And I like to I do like to dress.
Yes, you do.
I like to dress when I go out. I got a wedding this weekend, so you'll see some photos of me at the wedding.
Yeah,
at the wedding, and I've always been like a guy that like to dress, and when I played for the Dolphins, it was Coach Schuler. Was Coach Schuler? I think was one of the best coaches, one of the best head coaches that I've ever played for, and he, me and him had a little thing going on, because Shoes he used to check me. He used to check me before I got on the plane to see what I was wearing. I walk on the plane. He would say, "Stop. Let me see what you got. Hold on. Let me see." He would check me out from head to toe when we get on the plane. He'd check me out from head to toe. Then one time he was like, "I got the same shoes you got there." I say, "Oh yeah." I say, "But you don't have the same suit." And then then shoes. And then one time we was playing in Buffalo, and it was just like this. I don't know. I met this family. And I guess they were like a fan of mine, and then they would, every time I come out, they Kerry, and then they say, "Come on up," I go up to to where they're tailgating at, and then I got some food, and then and I'm coming, because at that time I'm hungry after the game, so I come back down, I come down the stairs and get on the bus. Guess who's there? Shoes. He goes, Kerry, hold on, where you going? He said, "Oh, what you got there?" I said, "I got some food." He said, "You got some food? Where'd you get that from?" I said, "Yeah, I got some fans up there. They gave it to me." And he goes like, "Oh, okay. Can I get some of that?" I said, "I tell you what, Shoes. This is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna give you the whole plate. I'm gonna go back up there and get me another one." He said, "Oh, that sounds good," because he was hungry. But yes, Shoes was one of when I broke my leg in Detroit, I said that I broke my leg because I heard it. I heard the bone snap when I broke. They didn't, and they X-rayed my leg. They didn't X-ray the whole joint. So what they X-rayed my leg from the ankle just midway my calf. They didn't do it all the way, and I told them my leg was broke. And so they, when they was treating me, they was treating me as a sprained ankle. But then, I was running, I still had pain in my leg, and then I just went and got a second opinion on it, and I came back and I was pissed off. and when I pissed off, I said I'm going home. I just left the complex. Coach Shula called me up. He said, "Kerry, what happened?" I said, "Shoes." I said, "You remember when we was in Detroit, when I came off the field, when you came over to me, I said my leg was broke." He said, "Yes." I said, "My leg was broke." I said, "They're treating me. They're treating me for something, for the sprained ankle, but they have me out there running, and I'm running on a broken leg." And then he said, "Okay, well, don't come back in today. Just take some time off. Take a couple of days off." He said, "Take a couple of days off, and then you come on back to the complex." I mean, Coach Shula was. I mean, at this time, he was one of the nicest coach. I mean, if you're the person, and like Richmond said, if you're a person that didn't break the rules, you're cool. I mean, Coach Shula don't have a problem with you. You're doing what you're supposed to do, and there's no trouble. And that was the type of player I was. I wasn't a player out there, late night, practicing. I know my whole deal. And I came in, and one thing he don't know too as well, Mike Westhoff. I was helping Mike Westhoff do the game plan. He didn't know that, and I was picking everybody on the special teams. So I was picking it. I had people that whoever I wanted on there, that's what I put on there. And he don't know that as of today. I hope he's not listening.
Well, Kerry, thank you so much for taking time out of your night to come back on the show and for being so great to Bob and I over the years. It is an honor for us to have you as a member now of our Guest Hall of Fame. We always have so much fun when you're a part of the show. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being such a great guest over the last 4+ years, and we always look forward to the next time because you're so fantastic.
But thank you guys. Thank you for having me on the show. And like I said before, anytime you guys want me to be on your show, I'm almost always available for you guys, no matter what. I don't care where I'm at.
Thank you, Kerry.
I'm always
That's
available
fantastic.
to you guys. So
we appreciate you, Kerry.
You guys
all the best to you and your family.
All right, buddy. Thank you guys, and you guys have a good one.
We'll talk
you
soon.
too, Kerry.
Okay.
That is former Jets and Dolphins defensive back Kerry Glenn, and we always have such a great time when he is a part of the show because you can hear the enthusiasm in his voice and you can almost see the smile in his face. All right, now back with us and making his sixth appearance with us on the Kyvan Foods guest line is the sixth member of our 2017 Guest Hall of Fame class, and that is former Steelers kicker Jeff Reed. Jeff joined us for the first time back in October of 2014, so he's been a part of the TNT family now for nearly 3 years. We became instant fans of his because of his forthcoming and honest approach, and his podcast, Barely Controlled Radio, is fantastic as well. Let me remind you a little bit about Jeff's background. He is from Kansas City, Missouri, played his college ball at the University of North Carolina, but Jeff never kicked in a college game until his junior year back in 2000. That season, he was named an academic All-ACC player and a finalist for the Lou Groza Award, which is given annually to the nation's top kicker. He was an undrafted free agent signed by the New Orleans Saints, but spent most of his career in Pittsburgh with my Steelers. He was a kicker in the NFL from 2002 to 2011. Did spend some time with the 49ers and the Seahawks in 2010 and 11. Over the course of his career, he accounted for 959 points, 919 of them with the Steelers, which ranks him second all-time on their points list behind only Gary Anderson. And we're excited and honored to induct Jeff into our Thursday Night Tailgate Guest Hall of Fame. Hey, Jeff, Chris and Bob here. Thanks for being such a great member of the show, and we can't thank you enough for your time and everything that you've done for us over the last 3+ years, and an honor that you're back tonight. How have you been, my friend?
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm good, man. That was a pretty good introduction. I don't get that very often anymore. It's usually being in the car business, you're the most hated guy. Everybody hates going to the finance office to do their paperwork. But, no, it's great to be a part of this show in general and to have an honor now with my name on it. It's pretty cool, man. It's something else I can say I did. But you guys really did. It's your show, and I'm just lucky to be a part of it.
So, Jeff, wanted to, start our time with you tonight, talking about, you were a part of so many wins and so many big wins, right? 2 Super Bowls with the Steelers while you were there. I'm just, as a guy who's a big Steelers fan, I'm curious, to get your memories. What are some of the things that you remember most about being a part of the Steelers organization?
Well, the biggest thing that sticks out, and it kind of culminated, unfortunately, with the death of Mr. Rooney. You start to realize how big of a family that really is. I went to his funeral this past off season, and not only did I see pretty much every player that could possibly make it from the teams I was a part of, but I knew some of the guys currently on the team, and I knew guys from the guys like Franco and Dwayne Woodruff and all those guys that were from obviously the years before me. And I'm sure if somebody that big died in any passed away in any organization, there would be a good showing. But I don't think you would have two huge rows full of former players, current players, President Obama, Robert Kraft of the Patriots, Jerry Jones of the Cowboys, and the list goes on. So that speaks enough in itself. It's a huge family. It was the most college atmosphere in the NFL team I ever experienced. And to this day, I still keep in touch with at least, I can count on both hands, at least 10 guys that I talk to on a regular basis. And so I think the biggest thing about it, of course, the rings are great. I mean, you can't say enough about those, but that's why you play the game. But it's the camaraderie that was fantastic in that city and that organization and in that community that I miss the most.
And Jeff, one of the things that I wanted to get your perspective on is the field, Heinz Field, right? When the stadium first opened, the turf wasn't very good. The wind in the open end of the stadium always seemed to be incredibly tricky. What was it like for you kicking there? And did the team and the field managers and the stadium people, did they all really understand what you guys were dealing with, particularly you trying to kick and plant on that field and trying to kick in that stadium?
Yeah, the funny part was every time I played somebody, of course, coming from North Carolina, we kicked on like basically golf green, Bermuda grass. So I was a little bit spoiled coming from the South, but when I went up there, regardless of the weather, because it's windy and rains and cold a lot of places, snows a lot of places, sleets a lot of places, but the footing was the issue, and it was funny because every time I played somebody, we played obviously every home game we had, the other kicker was like, I'm glad I only have to deal with this for 1 week this year. And I was like, well, I have to deal with it for at least 10 and hopefully more if we make the playoffs. But the one thing I say about it is you just, whatever hand you're dealt, you just deal with it. And I think a couple times I spoke my opinion too much, and it wasn't a knock on anyone. It was just what kind of person I truly am. And but 99% of the time was positive. Every once in a while, someone gets the best of you, and you obviously want to say the wrong thing, and sometimes you slip out with that. So the biggest thing I say about the field is it was very challenging. When you have to stand up for a living to make your field goals, you have to find a way. And the way I coach kids now that are in high school and younger, even in college, as I just got a new kicker that is in the starter at University of South Carolina in the SEC, which doesn't surprise me, but probably surprises the conference that who is this guy. But I saw it the whole time. When I teach them totally different than I learned how to kick on to play on that field. All the road games, with the exception of a couple games where you kick off baseball dirt, or if it's, Cleveland field used to be, hit or miss. All the games except for those games, it was like, I felt like I had to be 100% on the road to be successful, because I knew at home if I could make 75 to 80%, I would be over 80%, and I would be successful for the season. But the bottom line is I had to learn how to kick to accommodate to the field conditions, regardless if it was 75 and sunny or if it was negative 10 degrees and raining. You had to figure out a way to make it happen, because that's why they went through so many kickers. And the first kicker that was there was fantastic in Three Rivers Stadium, and then opened up Heinz Field, and he was 60%. And I was the next kicker in. Actually, Todd Peterson and myself. And neither one of them stayed very long. So I didn't complain about it. It is, and if I did, it was maybe to my family or somebody that was willing to listen. But the bottom line is they're paying me to play a sport and to do a job that is a God-given talent and I love to do. So I had to figure out a way to make kicks and help my team win.
Bob, questions for Jeff?
Jeff, when many of us think of the job of an NFL kicker, the issue of job security comes up, and there is no such thing as job security. It doesn't really matter how much success you've had in the past. You're a guy that made over 82% of your field goals. As a benchmark, a guy like Jan Stenerud in the Hall of Fame made like 67. I know the game has changed so much. But did you ever have a time in Pittsburgh, Jeff, where you figure you went out there and you said, I really have to have a good game here, or I might be looking maybe in the unemployment line a day or two down the line?
It was every game.
Wow.
I know that sounds pretty demanding, and I know that some people may take it as a joke, but whether or not you get a signing bonus from a deal, or whether or not when I was a rookie I was cheaper than other guys on the market, you don't make your kicks and help your team win, and you don't. The flip side of that, very easily you can cause your team to lose. And so my mentality every game was play this game and kick this kick as it's your very last. And I had to find a way that, and I didn't go into the mentality to be scared. I went in with the mentality that put me in this situation for a reason. I'm obviously good enough and strong enough to do it, so find a way. And if you have a bad game, you know what? It's over, and you get another shot next week. Or if you don't, then, if you don't get another shot, then maybe somebody else will want you. You got 31 more shots. So it was every week, because you can hit a game winner against a rival like Baltimore and be on top of the world where people are naming kids after you. And the next week you miss one in the fourth quarter and you lose by 1 or 2 or 3. And people, I've received death threats before. So it's the fine line, especially with any position. But we're in a position where we don't have a whole lot of opportunity to mess up. And if you go 4 for 5 in a game, you're usually okay. If you go 1 for 2 and that one you missed is one that's going to cost your team, they look at it as you went 0 for 2 and they shouldn't even pay you. So, and it's not the Steelers. I'm talking about the business, because the Steelers were great to me. I mean, they're still my family. I still talk to a lot of people, not only on the team but in the organization, because I mean, they have a special place in my heart forever because they helped me live a dream at a young age to where I'm not now trying to figure out what's next. And most people cannot say that. So to answer your question, I know it was a little long-winded. To answer your question, every game you play it as it's your last.
And we talked a few years ago, Jeff, about the extra point being moved back and how it might bring some strategy in, or not being automatic may make it interesting, and it has, really. But it's not a question of these guys can't make the extra distance. Obviously, the guys can kick better than and longer than anyone has in history, basically. But is it a question of guys letting their guard down, not concentrating? What would cause a guy to miss? And as far as what you've seen, watching like you have, hitting crossbars like they do right now?
I know it only seems like the only minor difference of 13 yards. But when you used to go out there for an extra point, you kind of in your mind, unless you slip or unless someone misses a blocking assignment, unless you totally have a brain fart as a kicker or you have a terrible snap and hold, you pretty much know you're going to make it. It's not. Yes, you have to concentrate because that extra point from 20 yards could definitely make or break your team and your game. But when you're at 33, it is a field goal. And, yes, you get 1 point for it. It's not the mentality of an extra point, though. And I know that if you're not a kicker, you may or may not be able to relate to that. It may sound like an excuse, but I knew when they changed this, it would get interesting. Then if you throw in a penalty or something and it's a critical moment in the game, shoot, it might turn into a 43-yard field goal, 48-yard field goal, just for 1 point, just to hopefully keep the momentum. So I knew it would change. I didn't think – I mean, it's funny how some of these guys make, with the guy from I forgot where he's playing on, maybe Minnesota, Forbath, I think his name is. He hasn't missed any field goals, but he's missed, 5 extra points. And, to me, I get it. I understand. But because it's important, he makes the three-pointers too. But those extra points can also change the momentum quickly. So I think that was an interesting rule. I still think they need to come up with a point system, though, so when you're down by 4 and your team's driving, if it's more than a 55-yard field goal, it counts as 4 points, and then, there's a system in there between. But if you're going to do that and you're going to bring excitement to the game, you might as well change it. And I've thought that for a long time. Most people probably don't care, in my opinion, but I still express it. You know that. So I do know I knew the extra point would cause some differences and changes. I didn't think as many people would. I probably saw 5-6 misses this last Sunday, just watching the games on the NFL Sunday Ticket. So it was surprising, but I've been in those shoes. I've been on those fields. It's not easy. And even though you should be able to make a 33-yarder in your sleep, if everything doesn't go right, it happens.
Yeah.
Jeff, before we let you go, remind our listeners about, what you're doing now and how they can stay up to date with you, whether it's online or it's on social media.
Well, the only social media I have is Facebook, of course, and the picture of me in a Tar Heels shirt with a Nike symbol, looking funny, goofy like I am as a person. That's really me. I control everything that's said on there, and that is me. It's not anybody else acting as me, because I know that happens. And on Twitter, I'm at the real Jeff Reed, and I don't get into all the Snapchat and all that because I like to have a little bit of a private life. I'm okay with most of it being public, but you kind of like some social time to yourself here and there. Also, I am the finance director. I run the entire finance department at a huge Chrysler, Jeep, Dodge, and Ram truck dealership, the largest in the southeastern United States. Which is obviously 13 states there. We're number 1 in volume. And obviously, I run the finance department, so I tell people all the time, my office, because my office is like a man cave. It's got some cool stuff in it. I tell people all the time, I'd rather kick a 50-yard game winner in the Super Bowl with that pressure when we're down by 2 than some of the pressure of controlling the money of a dealership. And I know that sounds funny, but you'd be amazed how many angles from all departments come at me, not because they're mad at me, just wanting it to get in order. And the responsibility is huge. And I accept it. I like it. never saw myself doing this, but that's why you just never know until you try, kind of thing. And I work a ton. I kind of, in my mind, work too much, but I guess there's no such thing as that because that makes you sound lazy. But not what I envisioned, but, it's a second career, and I have a path. And I can always go back to radio because I miss it. I still have my equipment, still have my small studio. Maybe I could come on with you guys on a regular basis and be part of your show and your preparation. I mean, just a thought. Because I have a handful of guys I interview with, and you guys do the best job. And it's not like you do anything spectacular compared to anyone else. It just flows. And I know when you're on the radio, if it doesn't flow, it becomes an issue. And there's a lot of dead time and dead air and crickets, But so that's what I'm doing now. I'm one of the top guys at the dealership, and that's what I do. I sell cars, try to make people happy. People that are pissed, I try to make them smile before they leave. People that are happy, I try to make them more happy. So, and the reason I got that job is because the owner is from Steubenville, Ohio. We have similar hair, so that's what kind of, brought my attention to him. And I met him, yeah. And I've been in a handful of his commercials, too. And so I'm really close with a bunch of the Carolina Panthers and Hornets because obviously that's in Charlotte. But I miss my Steelers and my Steeler fans. We had an autograph signing this last Saturday, and there were a lot of people there. But I knew if it was a Steeler linebackers, it would have been, we would have had to have security. So that's what I miss. And believe it or not, I signed about 20 autographs. I was trying to work, but, it was pretty cool. It made me feel relevant again. But anyway, the owner gave me a shot at it and told me his goals for me. And within a year and a half, I reached my, his goal for me. And so I look back and wonder how that happened because I'll never enamor you with car knowledge. But I guess when you make a friend, make them laugh, make them smile, that's what sales is all about. And so I guess when it comes down to it, I can sell you a pencil if I have to. So that's where I'm at. I mean, I miss the football. I miss the football atmosphere, the aura, the games, the pressure, the good pressures, the good feelings. I don't miss the bad feelings. I've only had a couple of those. But I miss the fans. I miss the camaraderie more than anything, and the charity events and touching people's lives. Even though I still do that, it's just not as often, and I wish there was more to it. But I'm involved in some stuff down here, some nonprofits, and I'm actually a president of the owner of the dealership's foundation, which is for children in need in the two counties closest to us here in Charlotte, and also homeless pets. So I do a lot of stuff like that anyway. I'm always donating money to somebody, whether or not I have enough to do that or not. To me, it always comes back. So I continue to do that. But, I'm still the same person, just not in as great a shape as I was in because I'm not working out on a regular basis. But other than that, I still make people laugh and smile and like to be the life of the party at 38 years old.
Well, Jeff, you've been a wonderful part of this show for, like I say, almost 3 years now. We can't thank you enough for continuing to come back and share your story, share your insights, share your opinions on what you see and what you've been through and what your career was like. We always have such a great time, getting to spend some time with you. Thank you for coming back again tonight. Thanks for being now a member of our Guest Hall of Fame, and we'd love to have you back as often as you'd like to be.
Well, whenever you guys text me, I always say yes, and that ain't gonna change. So, like I said, if you need me at 5:00, which you never do at work, I'll shut my door and lock it and turn my phone on mute, and people can deal with it. I'm loyal to a lot of people and certain people for a lot of reasons, and some of those people I probably shouldn't be loyal to, but I am anyway. But you guys aren't in that group anyway. But anything you need from me, you got it. Only thing I'm asking though, and I've been in my high school Hall of Fame, which is cool, and I did a little speech there, and that was good. Now this is another Hall of Fame I've been in, but I need some kind of even if it's cheap and plastic, I need something I can hang on my wall so I can make people think it's like a way bigger deal than the NFL Hall of Fame.
Oh. You got something already on its way to you, so you should be getting something here in the next couple of days. Let me know if it doesn't arrive.
I appreciate it, man, and it'll be in my office, and I'll send you guys a picture.
But I hope you will.
And I need to send you a picture of my office anyway because there's a lot of cool stuff in there. But thank you again,
Great.
and anytime you need me, I'm here for you. And good luck with your show.
I appreciate you, Jeff.
Thanks
Take care.
again,
All
Jeff.
the best to you and your family. We'll catch up soon.
All right, thank you, guys.
Good night.
That is former Steelers kicker Jeff Reed, and Bob, as I'm sitting here and taking a look at our switchboard, a number has popped up on the switchboard that looks awfully familiar to me, and if I didn't know better, I would say it's former Rams Pro Bowl quarterback Jim Everett. Good evening, Jimmy.
Hey, Chris, Bob. Hey, happy 6th anniversary, boys.
We appreciate you, Jim.
Calling in.
Hey, it's halftime of the Ram game. Of course, I'm pulling myself away because I just want to make sure that I touch base with you guys because it's such an important time. You guys do such a wonderful job with all the athletes and all the former players telling the story. You guys, you got such a great forum, and just listen to Jeff talk too about his love and loyalty to you guys. You deserve it.
Well, we thank you for that, Jim. You've been a wonderful member of our Guest Hall of Fame for several years now in our inaugural class, and a guy that's been with us from the beginning. And you want to talk about loyalty to somebody? Our loyalty is certainly to you because you've been an outstanding member of our family now, like I say, for almost the entire 6 years that we've been on the show. So we can't thank you enough for everything you've meant to us because a lot of the inspiration and a lot of things that we do, we go back to the guys that joined us very early on in that first season when Ange and I were doing the show and we were just two schmoes that no one ever heard of. Not that anyone's heard of us now, but you guys certainly never heard of us. And the willingness that you guys had to come on the show and share your stories with us and treat us just like I think you would if anybody else you did an interview with was something that meant an awful lot to both of us and continues to mean an awful lot to Bob and I. And the fact that you picked up the phone to join us and be a part of our 6th anniversary says an awful lot about you. So we can't thank you enough, Jim.
Well, you bet. I know we've got to go here in just a bit, but again, you guys provide a lot of opportunities for guys to talk about stuff that maybe never get talked about. And I think that's so cool for guys to get it out there, some fans to listen to it, because it's just really stories that people really might not catch because, believe it or not, the NFL player is a human. And it is good for people to get that stuff out, and it's good to hear. Some of the stories you guys have been told by other players is just phenomenal.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Jim, and we'll let you go because I'm sure you want to get back to the rest of the Rams game. But that is, one of the things that, sort of been the foundation of the show is the fact that, to your point a moment ago, you guys are human. And, yes, you play a game and you're idols to a lot of people and, famous and all of those sorts of things. But when you peel all of that away, you guys are human. And you've got a lot of human stories and guys are dealing with a lot of things, post their careers. And, the foundation of the show is to get you guys on to tell your stories, share your memories, right? Share the happy times, and then talk about, some of the things that might not be quite as happy, when you think about what guys are dealing with, 10, 20, 30 years after their playing career. So that's what this show is all about. That's why we started it. That's why we continue to do it. And those are, why Bob and I have such a great time, and we're here 6 years later. So thank you for saying that. Thanks for your time tonight. Thanks for coming on.
You bet. Chris, Bob, you guys are kicking butt. And I want you to know the fantasy football owners who have Todd Gurley right now are very happy with those 3 touchdowns already. Fortunately, he's not on one of my teams. I got to pump our Thursday night.
He's not on your team.
Football. No, I wish he was, but we're trying to angle our way to get back to the top. But that's a whole nother subject. You guys keep rolling. I'll check in with you guys a little bit later, and you guys are the best. All right.
Thank
you, Jimmy. Take care.
All right. Much love.
Take care.
That's former Rams Pro Bowl quarterback Jim Everett calling to check in on our 6th anniversary. It doesn't get much better than that, Bob.
Chris, he's such a sarcastic guy. So when he's talking at the beginning there, giving us all these compliments, I says, "Is this guy serious or not?" I think he is, and but he can be like that. Such a smart guy, but a great fan, great friend, and that made my day hearing from Jim.
Yes, it did. I think that he would just pick up the phone like that to come back and be a part of the show.
Sure.
All right. When Bob and I come back, we'll be turning on the Thursday Night Tailgate Spotlight on the Positive. We'll share 2 more stories about guys doing great things in their communities. We'll do that and wrap up the show on the other side of these words from our friends over at Kyvan Foods and the Salt Creek Golf Retreat.
This is Reggie Kelly, former Cincinnati Bengals and Atlanta Falcon tight end, and I'm the owner of Kyvan Foods. And if you enjoy delicious food, you're going to love my Kyvan products, which consists of our honey apple salsa, sweet barbecue sauce, and an array of seasonings. For store locations, online orders, and recipes, check out our website at www.kyvan82.com. That's KYVAN 82.com. One taste, and you'll appreciate the goodness.
If you're looking for a great place for your annual golf outing, a weekend golf getaway, or just a round of golf with your buddies, then Salt Creek Golf Retreat is just what you're looking for. Centrally located in Nashville, Indiana, just south of Indianapolis and west of Cincinnati. This challenging but fair 18-hole golf course appeals to all skill levels, and its scenic views of rolling hills and tree-lined fairways are sure to make golfing memories for years to come. Owned and operated by former Purdue and New York Giants fullback Randy Manier, Salt Creek Golf Retreat offers stay-and-play packages that include golf and a fully furnished 1- or 2-bedroom condo. After your rounds, be sure to stop by the 19th Hole Sports Bar and Restaurant for great food, fun, and drinks. Randy and his staff will treat you like family. For more information, log on to saltcreekgolf.com. That's saltcreekgolf.com. Or give them a call at 812-558-5944. Salt Creek Golf Retreat. Start making your golfing memories today.
Thursday Night Tailgate, where the spotlight is always on the positive. Tune in Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time to hear your favorite NFL legends, players, and coaches sharing their stories. Now back to Chris and Bob.
I wouldn't joke about anything else that happens here tonight.
Hey, we're back here on Thursday Night Tailgate, and we're turning on our spotlight on the positive. Bob, who do you have for us this week?
Came across some good things this week, Chris, that the Tennessee Titans were doing. Historically, Chris, Tuesdays in the NFL have been off days, right? I mean, you need time to rest and rest up the banged-up bodies, and Tuesdays spend the day. Well, not for these Tennessee Titans. They have something their community relations department calls Titan Tuesdays, Chris, where these guys go out into the community and start doing great things. And, a couple of weeks ago, it was the offensive linemen. 3 or 4 of them went to St. Thomas Hospital right down in the Tennessee area, where they do a lot of knee replacements, a lot of orthopedic stuff. And they had a bunch of guys spreading goodwill and cheer to those patients down there of all ages. And they said it was a tremendous hit. And then last week, the Titans Tuesdays, they took it to a middle school, at Tyler Middle School down there, Chris, where they 3 guys, Daquan Jones, Sylvester Williams, Jarrell Casey, went into the school, and they educated that school about the Fuel Up to Play 60 program, and that's all about getting kids active and healthy lifestyles and exercising 60 minutes each day. That's a very popular program, but those guys do it, obviously when they're all banged up and healing, but they're out there encouraging people to stay active, and they do so much with that kind of stuff. So, and again, a lot of these are at-risk kids, and they educate them about good nutrition, and these are kids that are having trouble getting meals per day, and these guys are right on top of it. But just some great pictures on their website. If you go to the community part of the Tennessee Titans website, it's called, again, Titans Tuesdays, and I almost look forward every week what they're going to do on a Tuesday. So kudos to that organization, Chris, doing great things in the community.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic stuff, Bob. That's a great story. And this week, Bob, I'm going to put the spotlight, on the Dolphins organization. I should say I'm probably going to put the spotlight back on the Dolphins organization. I think not that long ago, you had spotlighted them, and so now they continue to do some great things. And I read a story this week as Hurricane Irma was making landfall in South Florida. Miami Central High School was playing a football game against three-time defending high school national champions Bishop Gorman up in Las Vegas, Nevada. So, and in that game, oh, by the way, Miami Central upset them 24-20. So a big victory, for those guys. But as the storm came in, the team got stranded there in Las Vegas. So, and I'm sure for kids, right, being stranded in Las Vegas, that's fantastic. For the school administration, it becomes a nightmare because the cost of food and lodging for a 69-member team in Las Vegas, for multiple days because they can't get back to Miami. Now the costs start to get into the tens of thousands of dollars. And, kudos to Bishop Gorman, the other high school, offered to pay for a couple of days that Miami Central was stranded there. So that was great, on behalf of that school. But the Dolphins became aware of the situation. Former tight end Troy Drayton, he's the team's manager of youth programs. He got a phone call, about the team's travel problems, and so he got involved. And then some of the Dolphins players also heard about the situation through, whether it was through the team or through an article that was written in the Miami Herald. So guys like wide receiver Kenny Stills and Ndamukong Suh, Rashad Jones, Lawrence Timmons, who knows what his future is with the Dolphins because of some other things, but he got involved. Tackle Laramie Tunsil got involved, wide receiver Devontae Parker got involved, and as did the whole sort of Dolphins front office. And all of those guys got together and donated money to cover the rest of the team's expenses. Plus, they arranged for the team to get transported, back to Miami and then from the airport back to the school. So, Bob, one of the things that I love, Ndamukong Suh, when he was talking about why they got involved, he said it's very simple. Guys understand that we're fortunate in a lot of ways, and then, we get to live a particular lifestyle. So it's simple for us to give back to the youth and to give back to a situation like this and get these guys home, which I love. I love that, that quote for him saying that. So, Bob, I want to send out kudos again to those players in the Dolphins organization for what they did to help the kids from Miami Central High School get back to Miami and get their expenses covered. It's a great story from those guys.
It is, and there's so many organizations like that, Chris, and it's our job to get it out there. Again, you don't hear about it enough unless you dig into the websites of these teams, but it shouldn't be like that, but we have fun doing it.
Yes, we do, and that's why we love doing the Spotlight on the Positive. As you say often, Bob, our favorite segment of the show. All right, Bob, it is time for us to put a bow on this very special episode of Thursday Night Tailgate. Our thanks again to our 2017 Guest Hall of Fame class, which includes Beau Bock, E.J. Jr., Muhsin Muhammad, Richmond Webb, Kerry Glenn, and Jeff Reed. And Bob, like I say it during this point in the show, and I said very sincerely up front, it's an honor to spend every week, doing this show with you, and we've been doing it now together for 6 years. Thank you, my friend.
Yeah, it's flown by, Chris, and that's the sign of having fun and having some success. So, again, keep doing what you're doing because it's working. Thank you, sir.
All right, next week, folks, we will kick off our 7th season of Thursday Night Tailgate, and we'll do it with a return visit from former Redskins Pro Bowl quarterback Gus Frerotte. Gus was great with us, about a month or 6 weeks or so ago when he joined us, so very much looking forward to spending more time with him. We'll cross way over into another sport, mountain climbing, with Vern Tejas, and Vern has done some unbelievable things. Like he's the guy who did the fastest ascent to the world's 7 highest summits, including Mount Everest and Mount Kilimanjaro. But on top of all of that, he has been doing some really great things for our servicemen and women. This show has been a part of the Armed Forces Radio Network for several years, and Vern has done some wonderful things for our servicemen and women, so I want to get that story out there. So he'll join us next week. Former Steelers, Seahawks, and Patriots Pro Bowl linebacker Chad Brown will be back with us, as will former Houston Oilers punter Greg Montgomery. And then we'll get Tony Collins back in here, get back to doing our 5-star picks of the week. So we've got a really great
great show lined up for you to start year 7 here on Thursday Night Tailgate. We hope you will come back and be a part of it with us. Want to remind you on social media, how can you stay up to date with what we're doing? Well, on Twitter, you can find me at CT Mascaro. Bob is at Bob_Lazari, and the show is at TNT Podcast. Please also check out our page on Facebook. Give us a like. That's very important to us as well. You can stream or download any of our archive episodes by going to our website, ThursdayNightTailgate.com. Plus, you can also find them on great sites like iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Blog Talk Radio, Stitcher, Spreaker, Audio Boom, Player.fm, SoundCloud. But most importantly, our great friends over at Podbean that have been so very good to us and featured us, so long, probably for the last, almost year now, on their site, on their sports and recreation section. We can't thank them enough for their support. Bob, take us home, my friend.
Chris, had a blast tonight. Always a great time inducting people like we did, but also want to give a great shout-out to our longtime announcer, Joe Lajanusa, for the great job he does with our weekly intro and ads, and to James Brocato and all the guys from Painted Faces for the upcoming outro music. On behalf of myself and Chris, we want to thank everyone tonight for listening. We appreciate you the most. Until next week, good night, Kevin. We miss you.